After the Donquixote family temporarily moved their base camp to Mignon Island, nothing major happened for a long time afterwards. Toribol also returned to Mignon Island from Frevens and rearranged the family affairs. During the period, Toribol also quarreled with Quinn and Guy, and the quarrel came to Doflamingo. The reason is that Gaisa and Quinn are going to build a laboratory and an arsenal on Mignon Island. To this end, I went to Toribol to ask for project funds. Toribol didn't mean to refuse at the beginning. After all, the young master himself recruited these two scientific research talents mainly for the military industry business. Isn't it reasonable to build a military industry production line now? The result turned out to be good. Gaisa and Quinn bluffed, from the military production line to their own scientific research equipment, laboratory construction, a total of more than 200 billion Baileys in Mintorpol. When Toribol saw this number from the plan, he thought he was dazzled. After verification, Toribol firmly disagreed with the matter, and the two sides immediately had a big quarrel, which went to Doflamingo. Doflamingo is also very helpless about this matter, because both parties have their own reasons. Toribol said that Mignon Island is not the base camp where the Donquixote family will take root in the future. According to Doflamingo, this is just a temporary place to stay recently. It's okay to build the military factory of the Donquixote family here, and it's acceptable. Even if the family wants to move out in the future, it can still provide goods for the North Blue arms market here, and it is guaranteed to make a profit. But large scientific research laboratories are unnecessary, right? From the high-end scientific research equipment to the engineering construction of the laboratory, everything will be completed, and it will not take 3 or 2 years, and it will not be done at all. When the money is spent, things are settled, and the family wants to move out, what should we do? Isn't that money wasted? Quinn and Gaisa believe that without a scientific research laboratory, many projects in their hands cannot be carried out, not to mention that they will lag behind Vegapunk at that time. I am afraid that in a few years, Judge and Ba Jin will have results. Aren't they the most backward in the group? To be honest, both of them are right, and Doflamingo couldn't judge for a while, and finally decided to invest in a small one first. Just use it. Besides that, some trivial things happened. For example, Helding's good friend, Lily Ernst Mark, the giant girl who ate the Paramecia mini fruit, successfully arrived in North Blue, and after meeting with Helding, she announced openly that she would join Donquixote family. Doflamingo was of course very happy to agree, and approved Helding to set up a giant combat force that belonged exclusively to the Donquixote family. That's right, Helding's connections are pretty good. After the arrival of Lily Ernst Mark, he also sent out invitations to several of his friends. There are a few like-minded friends in Elbaf. Basically agreed to see the situation first. It is estimated that after Helding goes to Little Garden, pays a visit to Dory and Brogy, and sends the news back to Elbaf, there should be more giants who choose to join him. The giant family itself has a long history of mercenary experience, so Doflamingo is also thinking, after the number of giant combat troops like Helding increases, should the family also develop the mercenary business in the Dark World? Make money, not shabby. Come slowly, don't rush, slowly inject your own chi into. Lao Ji looked at Doflamingo, who was sitting cross-legged on the soft cushion, who was practicing, and gave a few words of guidance from time to time. Doflamingo's practice speed is indeed very fast, and he has almost mastered the most difficult explosion of vitality at this time. What is going on now is to consolidate the practice, deepen one's proficiency, and strive to make this explosive state appear in an instant. Just as the chi in Doflamingo's body transported a steady stream of life force and circulated in every corner of his body, and when he carefully experienced this feeling, Señor's handsome figure came in from the courtyard door of Lao Ji's house. After he saw Doflamingo was practicing, he didn't go forward to urge anything, but walked to Lao Ji's side very naturally and waited silently. After about a dozen breaths, Doflamingo's aura walked around, then he opened his eyes, looked at Señor and asked, "What's wrong?" "Young master," Señor said softly, "there is someone from Mariejois, and Toribol is waiting for him." "Mariejois?" Doflamingo was stunned for a moment, and asked in surprise, "Whose family?" Cough. "It was sent by St. Claudius," Señor responded. "Oh. My big cousin." Doflamingo laughed, but this time there was no surprise. It's interesting to say that, when he was driven away from Mariejois a few years ago, his big cousin didn't show any abnormalities. But in the past 2 years, after I have developed well in North Blue, my eldest cousin seems to be overt and covert, and will help him where he can. It's like the demon sword Zindu hanging on his waist now. For this situation, Doflamingo is not very surprised. Maybe his own strength was not valued by Mariejois earlier, but how to say, he Donquixote family in the end. It has a very fishy influence on the dark side of the North Blue. It is reasonable for people on Mariejois to pay attention to him. So after I have a climate and achievements, it is also normal to find a suitable person, get in touch with me again, ease the relationship from the past, and see if I can be used by Mariejois. My big cousin reckons this is the case. But thinking about it, since I was a child, my eldest cousin has a good relationship with me, so Doflamingo is not sure for a while. Is this situation spontaneously caused by the eldest cousin, or was it instigated? But after thinking about it again, I feel that it doesn't matter. No matter what the reason is, Doflamingo has no intention of rejecting the connection with Mariejois anyway. It will be very beneficial to him in the future development of the Donquixote family if they reconnect with Mariejois. As for the grievances in the past, Doflamingo knew very well that it was not time to settle accounts. In the reception room of the Donquixote family, a man with a gray beard, wearing a monocle and a butler's attire sat elegantly on the sofa. He was talking about some idle things with Toribal on the opposite side, but from time to time, he would look at the opposite door, as if he was waiting for someone. Just when he looked at the door for the 9th time, the door suddenly opened. Immediately, I saw Doflamingo walking in from the door handsomely in a black suit. The moment he saw Doflamingo, this butler-looking guy immediately stood up. He saluted Doflamingo very respectfully, Master Doflamingo. Oh. Ah fu. Doflamingo laughed and asked, how is cousin Claudius? Saint Claudius is very good, thank you for your concern, young master. The butler called, Ah fu, quickly responded. Doflamingo recognized him as the housekeeper of his eldest cousin Don Quixote Claudius's family. His name was Alfred, so everyone who knew him called him Alfred. And judging from Ah fu's attitude when he saw him this time, the big cousin and the forces behind him should have come with goodwill towards him. Doflamingo nodded, and after sitting on the sofa, he beckoned Ah fu to sit down too, and then asked, my cousin asked you to come see me, do you have any instructions? No, I don't dare to take instructions. Although many things have happened, Saint Claudius still regards you, young master, as his closest cousin. AFU said quickly. Doflamingo nodded noncommittally, without commenting. At this moment, Ah fu picked up the suitcase he brought from the sofa, put it on the table, and after entering the password, he said, Master Claudius, I heard that you were looking for a devil fruit, so I bought it specially and asked me to give it to you, young master. Doflamingo was stunned for a moment. What? Did the big cousin buy op fruit for me? Isn't that too polite? Then, under the expectant eyes of Doflamingo, Ah fu opened the suitcase, revealing a devil fruit inside. It was indeed paramecia. But it was not the red heart-shaped devil fruit that Doflamingo imagined. Clearly, this is not op fruit. Just when Doflamingo was a little confused, Toribal immediately said, young master, it is the fruit of the explosion. Ah. Doflamingo finally came to his senses, and it turned out that the fruit his cousin was talking about was this. Not being polite, Doflamingo signaled Toribal to put the fruit away, and at the same time looked at AFU and said, after you go back, thank my cousin for his kindness. After seeing Doflamingo accepting the fruit, Ah fu took out another check from his bosom, handed it to Doflamingo respectfully, and said, Saint Claudius is always worried about the difficulties you encounter here, young master, so this time come, let me also give this check to you, young master, please don't refuse. Doflamingo took the check and glanced at it, good guy, 50 billion Baileys. As expected of a big cousin, his hand is generous. My cousin is still good to me. After returning home, you must thank my cousin for me. Doflamingo put the check in his arms and said with a smile. This check is from the World Bank of the government of the world, and it is bearer, which is very good. The fruit was also accepted, and the money was also accepted. Doflamingo is not an ignorant person, so after chatting for a while, he asked. Speaking of which, although my cousin enjoys the blessings on Mariejois, he also has some unreasonable things. It's too convenient to do something, right? If you need my help, please don't be polite, we are a family. Seeing this, Ah fu hurriedly said, Saint Claudius specifically explained that this time I was sent here for the sake of brotherhood, so please don't worry too much, young master. Oh. Doflamingo understands, that is to say, make contact first, before I can be used. Doflamingo is not surprised by this. If there is no such simple foreshadowing, and you have to work hard yourself, then it seems that your cousin is a bit smart. Let me respond carefully. Although most of the celestial dragons around me when I was young were sand sculptures. But my cousin is obviously not that kind of person. Guessing the plan in the heart of the big cousin is to choose a good relationship, right? What if later on Doflamingo really grows up? What if he is really useful in the future? Seeing that Doflamingo's expression didn't change much, Nafu said again. However, St. Claudius heard that North Blue has a very strange slave recently, who is completely black. It seems very unique. So I wanted to go back and tease. 2. Doflamingo slapped the table and said, "My cousin and I have blood thicker than water. How can 2 be enough? Let the bastards in Figalondo next door know, and think that our Don Quixote family can't afford it. Nako, 10 for each of us." After finishing speaking, Doflamingo looked at Toripel next to him and said, "Toripel, please remember this matter. If I remember correctly, on Mariejois, Don Quixote's house probably has." Speaking of this, Doflamingo looked at Afu, and Afu hurriedly said, "Master, the Don Quixote family has 36 cases and 27 palaces. Yes, 10 per person, pick some healthy and pleasing ones, and let Afu take them back together," continued Doflamingo instructing. Toribol immediately agreed and said, "Yes, my lord." Afu also quickly thanked Doflamingo. Although these Nako slaves are not of much value, the attitude of Master Doflamingo already represents something. It shows that Master Doflamingo doesn't hold much resentment or rejection towards the family on Mariejois. At least, on the surface, that's enough. After confirming Doflamingo's attitude, Afu recalled what St. Claudius said, and then said, "Master, St. Claudius and his family have been trying to find a way in the past 2 years. See if we can let you go back to Mariejois." Doflamingo raised his eyebrows when he heard that. Really? Thank you, cousin, for me. To be honest, Doflamingo only believed half of Afu's words. If he remembered correctly, he held his father's head back when Mariejois said that he wanted to be celestial dragons again. The loudest objection was from the Don Quixote family. Although my cousin didn't stand up and reprimand him at the beginning, he really didn't speak up for himself. As for why the Don Quixote family is the most opposed, of course it is because once Doflamingo really becomes the celestial dragons again, the celestial dragons of the Don Quixote family who once divided up his family's interests will have to spit out something for him. It's all eaten into the stomach, and people have to spit it out. Isn't this embarrassing? Instead, let the kid Doflamingo keep getting out of Mariejois, so everyone doesn't have to bother. It's perfect. And now, Afu came to tell himself again, saying that the family has been trying to overthrow the iron case in the past 2 years, and let him Doflamingo return to Mariejois to do celestial dragons? It sounds ridiculous, but it's not ridiculous. Doflamingo thinks that these words contain 2 possibilities. The first one, no need to say anything, is to fool him, to draw a big cake for him, so that I can have expectations in my heart, and then wholeheartedly support the so-called Mariejois. Don Quixote family, hard work, bean. Doflamingo believes that this possibility is still very large. The second type. That is, those family members on Mariejois, who saw greater interests in him, far surpassing the interests of driving him out of Mariejois. So they now want to take back him Doflamingo for the greater good. Where does this interest come from? According to Doflamingo's analysis, it is estimated that on the one hand, the North Blue Don Quixote family's dark business has a huge amount of Bailey's revenue every year. Celestial Dragons is not short of money, but of course, the more money the better. On the other hand, it's him. There is probably only one thing that can make those greedy bastards on Mariejois change their attitude towards themselves recently, and that is the Cervantes incident. At the age of 18, Doflamingo fought against Admiral of Headquarters Sengoku for 6 days and 5 nights, and finally escaped from Sengoku. His performance moved the hearts of the fellows on Mariejois. The Knights of God? Doflamingo rubbed his chin and came to a conclusion in his mind. Perhaps, these Don Quixote's fellow clansmen saw the hope of the Knights of the Gods in him, so that the Don Quixote family is expected to occupy another seat in the Knights of the Gods. And the benefits brought by this are far greater than exiling him Doflamingo. But no matter what kind of consideration these bastards have, they are going to help Doflamingo get back to Mariejois or something. Doflamingo has no real plans to return Mariejois. The reason is also very simple. After leaving Mariejois, he is the boss of Don Quixote family. He can play as he wants, develop as he wants, and develop as he wants. But after going back, although the so-called Supreme, Celestial Dragon status has been restored, but in fact, they have gone to be someone's younger brother. Many things are not only inconvenient, but also more troublesome. And the most important thing is that Doflamingo doesn't like those pig teammates at all. How can Don Quixote be great again with these insects? Doflamingo sneered inwardly. But even though he doesn't plan to go back, cooperation and utilization are still possible. Therefore, the attitude shown by Doflamingo is still very kind. There are thousands of thoughts, but the reality is just a moment. Seeing that Doflamingo didn't reject these things, AFU continued. By the way, young master, Saint Claudius has exerted force in Mariejois and put some pressure on Marine. After that, as long as you don't do anything. 2 Marine will not take the initiative to take action against you if you have been in trouble. So that's it. First said that Marine didn't care about me during this time. It turns out that my cousin helped me share the pressure. I'm so grateful. Doflamingo immediately said, suddenly realized. This is dispensable help, in fact, even if Claudius doesn't make a move, Doflamingo can still stabilize Marine. After that, I didn't talk about any more things, mainly because Off-Fu didn't deserve to be here with Doflamingo too, you and me. It's almost the same if Claudius came in person. When Off-Fu was taken away from the meeting room by the maid of Donquixote's house. Toribol couldn't help asking, young master, what does Saint Claudius mean? Fufuroferfer, our Donquixote family, we don't know if it's the problem with the blood flowing in our body, or the problem with the thoughts and spirits passed down from generation to generation. Anyway, every once in a while, some people with all kinds of strange things will pop up. Strange ideas, my father is like this, and my cousin. I'm afraid it's also like this. Doflamingo smiled evilly. Thinking about it again, there was also Saint Muscarid who was sentenced to death by the Knights of God. Isn't it also weird? Even myself and my stupid Odudu Rosinante are not normal people. After a short pause, Doflamingo said, that's right, he wants to use me, why don't I want to use him? Speaking of this, Doflamingo touched the heart hanging on his waist, and thought to himself, at most, when I come to Mariejois, for the sake of this heart, give him a. Doflamingo's attitude towards his big cousin Claudius is probably quite friendly, mainly because the two sides have no enmity. But in the final analysis, it can be summed up as give him face, call him brother, don't give him face, let him go to the ground. After withdrawing his thoughts, Doflamingo asked, where did that guy Helding go? Why haven't I seen him these days? Diamante arranged for him to collect taxes, Toribol said calmly. The so-called taxation of the Donquixote family is actually an annual collection of protection fees from the various forces attached to the big tree of the Donquixote family. It's not troublesome, but it can't stand the forest, and there are all kinds of birds. As a behemoth on the dark side of North Blue, the Donquixote family also has many affiliates. Every year, there are always a few, either because the business is not doing well, there is no money, or they feel that their bodies are strong, and they want to experience the iron fist of sanctions from the Donquixote family. Anyway, it's about defaulting on arrears and doing something. Therefore, every year, the Donquixote family will send cadres to be responsible for collecting taxes. If someone dares not to pay taxes, then, if he kills his whole family, he will not live a dog. Hearing the answer, Doflamingo didn't ask any more questions. He pointed to the devil fruit on the table and said, give him this when he comes back. Understood. Toribol replied. Doflamingo asked again, recently, I've been so focused on my cultivation that I haven't had time to ask, is there anything on the family side that can't be resolved? That's right, although we suffered a lot in Cervantes, but thanks to the Cervantes incident, your reputation, young master, is now resounding in North Blue, and our business is doing even better. Smooth. Toribol said in a sticky voice. After a short pause, seeing Doflamingo frowned and was about to teach himself a lesson, Toribol hurriedly tried to restore his normal tone, and said, not only North Blue, but also our business in other sea areas, has also become more cared for. Just kidding, before the Cervantes incident, Doflamingo was just a North Blue country turtle in the eyes of the world. But now it is different, Doflamingo has a certain prestige in the world. After all, not everyone can fight Marine Admiral for 6 days and 5 nights without getting caught. In the past, Whitebeard, Roger and others, who knows which onion his Doflamingo is. But now, not to mention paying special attention to it, but at least he has an impression of Doflamingo in his heart. Seeing that Doflamingo nodded, Toribol said again, however, regarding the construction of the new flagship, Dove, you still have to take time to look at the design drawings. If you are satisfied, this is the ship you want. The original Flamingo was a small 3-masted sailing ship, and its carrying capacity, firepower, and performance were not superior enough. Doflamingo didn't have much demand at that time, and it was easy to use. Now that he has become a big pirate, and there are giants under his command, This small ship must not be able to bear the heavy responsibility of the flagship, so Doflamingo has to build a new flagship. Who made it? Doflamingo asked curiously. North Blue's shipbuilding technology is not very good, so we plan to wait for you to confirm the design, then send the commission directly to the capital of Seven Waters, let the ship be built there, and then bring it back to North Blue. Come on, Torbull said. Okay, I'll take a look tomorrow, Doflamingo replied. Meanwhile, in New World Wanokuni, Ghost Island, home of the Beast's pirates. A burly man with a huge stature, holding a jug in his hand, was looking at the wanted warrant and information in his hand. In front of him, there was also a man with his back on his back and wings wrapped tightly around his body, except for his eyes, barely revealing any physical appearance. These two people are Kaido and Jin. That bastard Roger turned into Pirate King, Kaido said angrily. The wanted warrant in his hand at this time is Roger's latest reward. 55,064,800,000 Pele. This bounty is the highest in the world and has become the highest in history, even higher than the bounty offered by Kaido's boss, Rox. Obviously, even if the Roger pirates announced their disbandment, the world government and naval headquarters are completely worried about these pirates, and would rather raise the bounty to such a degree, and find Roger to kill them. You know, it's not 20 years later, the bounty has not exploded to that extent. 20 years later, Whitebeard's bounty is only 5 billion points. Now, Newgate has only been offered a reward of more than 2 billion Baileys. Roger tops both of them. It can be seen that the reward offered this time is outrageous. Pirates are all rebellious, especially the big pirates standing in the front line, who the hell can accept a One Piece popping out of their heads. Therefore, even if Roger has basically secured his title now, people like Kaido, Charlotte Linlin, and Shiki will definitely not admit to One Piece. Now everyone is gearing up, wishing to find Roger out and beat him to death. In this way, Roger, the title of the One Piece, can be snatched away by them? Thinking of Charlotte Linlin, Kaido's expression was silent for a while, and then said, Linlin's Wangguo seems to be developing much faster than us. Indeed, judging from the current situation, Charlotte Linlin's Big Mom pirate group is developing very rapidly. In fact, even if you look at it 20 years later, the pirate group with the strongest foundation and the most powerful force in New World should be the Big Mom pirate group. Because Charlotte Linlin's development model is completely different from that of ordinary pirates, Toto Land Wangguo can be said to be a standard pirate country template. If you want population, you have population, if you want tax, you have tax, and if you want territory, you have territory. It has evolved from traditional plundering to the point of sustainable development. Maybe give her some more time, and her Big Mom pirate group will really become a pirate group that can be passed down from generation to generation. That is to say, Charlotte Linlin has to leave her base camp and go to Wanokuni to fight the Straw Hat League, otherwise, the outcome is really hard to say. Kaido was talking to himself here, but Jin stood silently beside his boss without saying a word. After a while, Kaido opened the information and asked, Did you find out? Well, the Donquixote Doflamingo of North Blue is Zone's phantom beast. It should be in the form of a legendary vampire. I guess it is precisely because of the powerful immortality and resilience of this ability that it took me so long to fight fiercely with Marine's Admiral, Jin replied. Zone, he is still a phantom beast. He is really a good seedling. If he can be brought under Laozi's banner, he will definitely be a great help to me in the future, just like you, Kaido said with some expectation in his heart. Kaido, who is obsessed with Zone's abilities, probably has the biggest dream not to be the One Piece, but to be the director of the zoo. Therefore, a large part of the formation of Beast's pirates is to find Zone's ability users. I heard that there was a newcomer from North Blue, and he fought fiercely with Marine's Admiral for 5 or 6 days as soon as he debuted. This made Kaido, who was already interested in expanding the strength of the Beast's pirates, so he asked Jin to inquire about the relevant information. Unexpectedly, the newcomer is a Zone phantom beast. It really made Kaido's heart itch. Did that Quinn find out? Kaido put down Doflamingo's information and asked again. Understood. I got mixed up with this phantom beast newcomer, Jin said calmly. Kaido froze for a moment, then frowned and asked, Where is Guy? It's the same, Jin replied. Kaido raised his hand and touched his chin, thinking. The more powerful the pirate group, the less likely it is to rely entirely on such things as plundering as its source of income. Because plundering is unstable, at this point, pirates who are not engaged in production have to consider making money from stable channels. The thinking of most pirates is still simple and rude, from plundering, simple evolution to collecting protection fees. Like the Whitebeard pirates, Their territory has to pay a large amount of protection fees to Whitebeard every year, so that they are allowed to fly the Whitebeard flag. Charlotte Linlin's Big Mom pirate group also has an important revenue, which is to collect taxes, that is, protection fees, from the various islands of the 10,000 nations under their command. Kaido also has it. Wano Kuni currently pays him protection fees and honors him as the king of protecting the country. But Kaido felt that the money was not enough, so he fell in love with Wanakuna's craftsmanship, and planned to use Wanakuna's resources and craftsmen to open a military factory, produce weapons and so on, and sell them all over the world to make money. But this kind of industry cannot only have resources and craftsmen, the most important thing is to have relevant scientific research talents, designers. Otherwise, you can only sell knives. But selling cold weapons, how can you make money selling artillery? So Kaido is also eyeing Quinn and Guy, the top weapon masters in the scientific research industry. It's just that I didn't expect that they were all cut off by this Donquixote family now. Originally Kaido was a little interested in Doflamingo, but now he seems to be more interested. But on his side, there are more important things that have not been dealt with. Without saying anything, Kaido changed the subject. That big snake, Kozuki Oden, is back. Yes, I just arrived in Giuli 2 days ago, right pointing arrow wrong responded immediately. Kaido rubbed his chin, frowning, and seemed a little embarrassed. Jin looked at his boss's appearance, thought for a while and said, "Brother, why don't I chop him up?" Not to mention whether Jin can beat Kozuki Oden, but he still has the confidence of being the second in command of the Beast's pirates. Hearing this, Kaido immediately shook his head and said, "No." Kaido, from his appearance, has a sloppy face and muscular body, making him feel like a brainless brat. In addition, he is an alcoholic and often does some funny things. So many people's impression of Kaido is that this guy has a sense of bravery. In fact, it was a big mistake. Kaido can stand out from the pirate group step by step and become the future 4 emperors. Otherwise, he shouldn't be an admiral, but was fooled into a thug. Jin offered to kill Kozuki Oden, but Kaido immediately refused. It's not that Kaido can't deal with Kozuki Oden. The main reason is that the identity of Kozuki Oden makes Kaido feel very troublesome. There are 2 very powerful gangs behind Kozuki Oden. The first one is the Roger Pirates. Although the Roger Pirates have been announced to be disbanded, you just got rid of their old teammates. In case they are in danger because of this, in order to avoid this kind of problem in the future, we will regroup. Get up. F***ku, don't you feel bad? This is one, and second, Kozuki Oden is not only a member of the Roger Pirates, but also a member of the Whitebeard Pirates, team captain. You suddenly killed Kozuki Oden now, and Whitebeard will find out in the future. Can this matter be good? So Kaido is annoyed by the existence of Kozuki Oden now. Of course he wants to kill the other party so as not to affect his plans in Wano Kuni, but it can't be now. The current development of Beast's pirates can't bear these 2 pressures, so Kaido decided to wait for a few years. When the time is right, it would be more appropriate to kill Kozuki Oden. Delay him for a few years. After a few years, all the members of the Roger Pirates have really settled down, and there will be no more troubles. At that time, if you kill Kozuki Oden, you only need to face Whitebeard. It's just pressure from the pirates' side. After a few years of development, Kaido realized that although he may not be able to catch up with the Whitebeard Pirates, it should be no problem to make that old Newgate afraid. Maybe, this matter, if you do it now, you need to find a hammer. After a few years, you can turn it into a big thing and a small thing. In fact, Kaido's speculations are very accurate. By the time Kozuki Oden was about to die a few years later, the Beast's pirates had grown considerably. The Whitebeard Pirates are also constantly changing. Some people, such as Newgate, do have feelings and recognition for Kozuki Oden, but Kozuki Oden doesn't spend much time on the Whitebeard Pirates ship after all. More people from the Whitebeard Pirates haven't even seen this guy. For such a person with a low sense of existence, Whitebeard took the whole team to fight Kaido to the death. Maybe because of his charisma, the younger brothers will respond to his call and fight Kaido. But it's not impossible. Because of Kozuki Oden's incident, it has planted more cracks in the future of the Whitebeard Pirates. The captain's seat is not so easy to sit on. Perhaps because of these various considerations, in the end, when the news that Kozuki Oden was killed by Kaido reached the Whitebeard Pirates, Newgate did not really break face with Kaido in the end. In this way, Kaido has no intention of killing Kozuki Oden for the time being, so he has to find a way to hold this guy. It is also because of the existence of Kozuki Oden that Kaido has no way to get away from Wano Kuni for the time being, and has to suppress his thoughts of recruiting Donquixote Doflamingo and others. On the other side, Naval Headquarters Marineford. In a small conference room, there are several bigwigs sitting at this time, personnel from the intelligence department, who are reporting some intelligence on the sea to them. It is reported that after the Roger Pirates announced their disbandment, there was an eyewitness testimonial that Gould Roger and Edward Newgate had an appointment at New World Sakura Flower Island. The specific circumstances are unknown. The Whitebeard pirates did not change anything after that. Rosinante stood in front of a projection, holding a document in his hand, and quickly reported the situation. Underneath, Sengoku Admiral leaned his head closer to some garps and asked, "You said, Roger, he won't be colluding with the Whitebeard pirates to make any big news, right?" "It's unlikely." Garp shook his head, and continued, "Whitebeard is not a nosy person. If Roger really wants to use a big pirate to do something, he might as well go to Shiki. Not to mention, according to the current intelligence, the Roger pirates have really disbanded, not some pretense, so I am more inclined." "Inclined to what?" Sengoku asked nonsense, touching the braid on his chin. The meeting between Roger and Newgate in Sakura Flower Island was more like a old friend's farewell, Garp said after thinking about it. Sengoku was silent for a moment, feeling that what Garp said made sense. So he temporarily suppressed his thoughts. Rosinante kept reporting some information on it, and Sengoku and others also discussed it from time to time. This discussion lasted for about 2 hours. Marine rearranged a lot of ideas, made corresponding arrangements, and discussed a lot of layout and views on the situation at sea before finally adjourning the meeting. Sengoku was not in a hurry to leave, and waited for a while in this small meeting room. After Rosinante packed his things, he smiled and said, "Rosinante, you told me this morning that you have something important to discuss with me." "Yes, what?" At this time, there was no one in the conference room, so Rosinante did not hide his thoughts, looked at Sengoku and said, "Admiral." When there is no one, Sengoku waved his hand and said. But before he finished speaking, Rosinante smiled a little shyly and said, "Father, I want to transfer to the field." "Huh?" Sengoku was stunned for a moment, and then said, "Why do you have such an idea?" Rosinante's strength is not very good. It can be said that his talent are not related to the force value. However, he seems to be very keen on intelligence collection and other aspects, so he also works in the intelligence department of Naval Headquarters. Very talented. But as Rosinante said, this is just clerical work, and he seems to want to go out now. Recently, I have been researching the information on the North Blue Donquixote family. The deeper I go, the more I feel that if we continue to let them grow, there will be serious problems in the future. Rosinante said in a deep voice. Sengoku frowned, and then said, "What about Mariejois? I haven't told you, have I? Now is not a good time to do something to Don Quixote Doflamingo. Mariejois is protected by Doflamingo. This is the first, and the second is that several months have passed since the Battle of Cervantes Island. Sengoku discovered that although Doflamingo was listed as a pirate by Marine, he has not changed much from before so far. What more troubles are caused? Therefore, combining the two, Sengoku also thinks, wait for a while, at least wait for the limelight to pass, wait for the right time, and then clean up Doflamingo." "I know." Rosinante replied sonorously. "Due to the situation in various aspects, it is really inconvenient for us to take action against the Don Quixote family now, so we should prepare for the future and learn more about their information and secrets, and wait until the time is right. It is time for a thunderbolt to uproot the entire Don Quixote family, so as not to kill the snake." "That's right." Sengoku nodded and said, "Because of this, even if there is pressure from above, I didn't say that I would withdraw the intelligence team responsible for the Don Quixote family. For Doflamingo. Also established a special intelligence analysis class. Admiral." Rosinante called Sengoku Admiral again, and then said, "I am Doflamingo's younger brother, and he doesn't know my marine status. If I go back to North Blue and Don Quixote family now, I may become the core members of the Don Quixote family and obtain their core secrets, which will help us to comprehensively develop the Don Quixote family in the future." "Nonsense, you have no idea how difficult your brother is," Sengoku immediately vetoed. "He has fought against Doflamingo, and he knows very well that Doflamingo is a cunning, clever, sinister and vicious person. Rosinante's silly and sweet character may not be exposed to Doflamingo. That guy Doflamingo even killed his father if he said so. Once Rosinante is exposed, can he still live? This is the only one for me. Well, an adopted son, but he is developing in the direction of his own son. How can you be willing to send him to Doflamingo's tiger's mouth?" In the collection room of the Don Quixote family. At this moment, Doflamingo, Quinn, and Guy are walking here. After a while, Doflamingo came to a display case, and inside this display case was a pear-shaped off-white devil fruit. Doflamingo looked at this devil fruit with a little bit of embarrassment in his eyes, as if he was reminiscing about things a long time ago. It was indeed a long time ago, when he was only 10 years old, and it was also the first year when his soul came to this world. Returning to North Blue from Mariejois in a daze, Torbull and the others took out this devil fruit, intending to give it to Doflamingo as a power of revenge. That's right. This devil fruit is exactly the devil fruit ability that Heavenly Yaksha Donquixote Doflamingo ate, Paramecia string fruit. Although Doflamingo didn't choose to eat this devil fruit later, he didn't get the ability until not long ago. But this devil fruit, Doflamingo, is not intended to be eaten by others. He always felt that this devil fruit seemed to represent a certain part of himself, so he kept it here. Take a look at it from time to time, remember the past, recall the future, check for omissions and fill in vacancies, and think about life. Seeing Doflamingo standing in a daze in front of this devil fruit, Quinn was a little puzzled and looked at Gaisa. Guy Saw is also a little confused, don't understand what's going on. At this moment, Doflamingo said, Paramecia string fruit, I almost swallowed this ability back then. Quinn was stunned for a moment, and then said, if you eat, I'm afraid you won't be able to reach the level you are today. It's not necessarily true. Although the abilities of the phantom beasts should be better, if they eat the abilities 8 years in advance, maybe I'm awakened now. Doflamingo said with a smile. Guy said, Paramecia's ability, the chance of awakening is not as great as Zone. You Logia guy, you're not in a position to say that, Doflamingo teased. Guy Saw Wenyan also laughed, indeed, he from Logia, what is he talking about, awakening or not? After skipping this topic, Doflamingo asked, so, back to the topic we talked about before, about the materialization technology of devil fruit. Do you think this string fruit can be used? The devil fruit materialization technology is a result of the MADS research team in the early years, and belongs to Dr. Vegapunk's technology, but it is obvious that the people in the MADS team, they all have this technology. Is it a member benefit? Dr. Vegapunk can be the boss in this organization, of course he has to take good care of his subordinates. Quinn and Guy have been part of the Donquixote family for some time. The initial feeling of experience has also passed, and now I feel that it is really good, and since the two of them joined the Donquixote family, they only asked for money to buy, and the rest have not contributed anything yet. Doflamingo himself is not in a hurry. After the production line is established, military products can be produced continuously, which in his opinion is already a great contribution. But Quinn and Guy were still a little anxious, so they took the initiative to ask Doflamingo to mention some of the technologies that can be done with the current scientific research equipment. Among them, this devil fruit materialization technology is included. This technology can allow items to eat devil fruit through human intervention, so as to realize the ability of items to obtain devil fruit. Normally speaking, Zone must be better at it. Guy nodded immediately, and then said, in order to raise more funds, this technology actually leaked out to the first generation version, which was originally developed, and can only be used on Zone's devil fruit. It should be circulating in the black market now. Quinn continued. That's right, but we improved this technology later, and now, all 3 series of devil fruits are available. There is still this technology on the black market. Doflamingo was a little surprised, but on second thought, in Alabasta, Crocodile's subordinates all have a dachshund dog that can spit out cannonballs, and that is the cannon gun modified by Zone's ability. Can't it be Vegapunk or Quinn and Guy who personally ordered it for this little guy? Now it seems that it should be the first generation technology circulating in the dark world. That's good. Doflamingo nodded, then took off a simple ring on his ring finger, handed it to Guy beside him, and said, I'm sorry to bother you too. Materialize this string fruit into my ring. Guy took the ring, and then said, young master, if it is suitable, the knife on your waist is also very suitable as a carrier. In fact, we recommend weapons. This technology is classified as a secret, but it is not considered a secret, but there are not many people who know about it, so when it is used in weapons, it can often yield unexpected results. Quinn then affirmed. Doflamingo raised his hand and touched the heart on his waist, thought for a while, and it really made sense. Adding a weird fruit ability to Zindu, Doflamingo does not reject it, on the contrary, he thinks it is very suitable. Improve your own strength, don't be shabby. But to eat string fruit for Zindu, it seems a bit weird. He touched his chin, thought for a while, and clapped his hands. Yes, I have a Paramecia devil fruit here, which is very suitable for sword weapons. The Donquixote family is the largest devil fruit merchant in North Blue. Generally, the devil fruit with good performance will be collected by the Donquixote family. Even if there is no suitable food candidate for the time being, it will be stored first. It's Trafalgar Law, who's being trained right now. After these seedlings are cultivated, those who are outstanding or have made great achievements will often be included in the family cadre system and rewarded with a devil fruit or something. Perhaps the top-level devil fruit, the Donquixote family is very difficult to get, but it is normal for the family to keep a dozen devil fruits in their hands. Doflamingo walked a few steps according to his memory. Unlike the display case of string fruit, most of the other devil fruits are in the safe. Doflamingo rummaged through the safes, opened one, and took out a devil fruit. He threw the devil fruit to Quinn, and said, "Have you heard of the Paramecia weasel fruit?" "I've heard of it. When I first heard about this devil fruit, I thought it was a zone phantom beast," Quinn said immediately. Sickle weasel, originally a legendary creature, was born in the wind, exists in the wind, and is a kind of monster that grows in the wind. It can turn the wind into a sickle and harvest people's lives. But unfortunately, the phantom beast devil fruit of the sickle weasel has not been found for the time being, and at this time, the Paramecia devil fruit that Quinn is holding in his hand is called the weasel sickle. The reason is because this Paramecia devil fruit, like a sickle weasel hidden in the wind, can send out a slash like wind pressure. Or say that is a wonderful devil fruit, say it is Paramecia, it is indeed Paramecia, but it seems to have some elements of zone and logia at the same time, which is outrageous. In the original story, for some unknown reason, this devil fruit spread to East Blue and was eaten by a little boy named Eric. Didn't perform to any special level, but in Doflamingo's view, if this devil fruit can be paired with Zindu, it will definitely raise Zindu and his own strength to a higher level. After Quinn introduced this ability to Guy said very excitedly, "This ability is very suitable for swordsmen. Putting it on the heart, it is definitely very powerful. Then I'll leave it to you." Doflamingo immediately decided to open the door and handed over his heart to Quinn and the others. After finishing these, the three of them are ready to leave here. As soon as he walked to the door of the collection room, the heavy door was opened from the outside, and then he saw Senio walking in. After seeing Doflamingo's group, he was also very surprised and said, "Young master?" "Oh, senor. What's the matter? Did you gain anything?" Doflamingo asked with a smile. Senor nodded, then gestured to the suitcase in his hand, and said, "I received a new devil fruit, which is Paramecia clone fruit." Doflamingo nodded calmly at first, this kind of thing is not surprising. But the next moment, he was a little surprised and said, "Paramecia clone fruit? No. This devil fruit, if Doflamingo remembers correctly, should have been eaten by one of Kurozumi's family in Wanokuni, right? In my impression, there is a guy named Kurozumi Higurashi, who is a clone fruit capable user in this era. She planned a lot of conspiracies in Wanokuni, and was hacked to death by Kaido because she intervened in the battle between Kaido and Kozuki Oden. But that should be a few years later, and now, she should still be hanging out at Wanokuni. Why did this devil fruit fall into the hands of the Donquixote family? At first, Doflamingo thought someone was tricking the Donquixote family with fake devil fruit, but later ruled that out. Ultimately, Doflamingo concluded that something unexpected happened to him that caused the situation. If you insist on categorizing it, it should be regarded as the butterfly effect. Looking at the clone fruit in his hand, Doflamingo was also thinking. From the perspective of strength, to be honest, the effect of this devil fruit is not obvious. But if you look at it from other angles, this devil fruit is simply too powerful. If it is eaten by someone with Grandmaster espionage skills, good guy. What's more, if you look at it from a more obscene point of view, how is this different from the ability of the mutant Mystique? Give your girlfriend a bite, hey, it's like owning the whole world. Of course, the premise is that you have the ability to let your girlfriend get in touch with those beauties. It's a pity that although Doflamingo can be regarded as singing every night, he really doesn't have any regular girlfriend. There are not many beauties in the Donquixote family, not to mention beauties, there are not many female cadres, that is, Aunt Jola and some of her subordinates are women. At this time, in Doflamingo's room, Doflamingo, who was sitting on the sofa, touched his chin, and finally played with this clone fruit and said, "Senor, this devil fruit should be placed here with first. By the way, if I remember correctly, Habe hasn't eaten any ability yet?" "Yes." Senor nodded immediately. In fact, Senor, the fruit-capable user later on, also didn't eat any devil fruit at this time. Doflamingo's fingers tapped lightly on the table a few times, as if he was calculating something. After a while, he asked again, "Among the batch of new seedlings in the family, is there a little girl named Monet who is doing well?" Senor froze for a moment, then said a little embarrassedly, "I really haven't noticed this, please wait a moment." Saying that, Senor took out the phone bug from his pocket, and quickly dialed Diamante's pass. What Senor is usually responsible for has nothing to do with the new seedlings of the family, so he doesn't know much about the situation there. In contrast, Diamante can be regarded as the swordsmanship instructor of those new seedlings, not to teach them how high-end swordsmanship, mainly to screen and see if there are any swordsmanship seedlings among these new seedlings. If so, it is better to cultivate in advance. Like Trafalgar Law, Diabete praised him for having a good talent for swordsmanship. Therefore, Diamante needs to know more about the young seedlings of the family. Soon, Diamante gave the answer. Senor hung up the phone, and said to Doflamingo, "Yes, my lord, there is a little girl named Monet, who is only 8 years old this year." Diamante said that although she doesn't have any talent in kendo, she is very clever, and she can endure hardships, and her training in all aspects is very good. 8 years old. Doflamingo stroked his chin. Well, he was 10 years younger than himself. Originally, Doflamingo wanted to let Monet eat this clone fruit. After all, Monet has a good espionage talent. If she develops step by step, she will indeed be an intelligence agent sent by the Donquixote family. Coupled with the fact that the fat and water will not flow to outsiders, Monet will grow up in the future, and she will also be a big beauty. It is impossible to say that Doflamingo has no idea or something. At that time, this clone fruit both public and private use. But in the end, this idea was suppressed by Doflamingo, without it, because Monet was too young. After Monet eats this fruit, it will take at least 10 years for it to play a role, right? Too much delay. Seeing Doflamingo's pensive look, Senor asked curiously, "Young master, do you have any special arrangements for this devil fruit?" When harvesting devil fruits in the past, I never saw my young master being so interested. Yes. Doflamingo nodded without hesitation, followed by an evil smile on the corner of his mouth and said, "Furfur. Although it is not sure what it is now, maybe in the near future, I will the younger brother who has been lost for many years. Rosinante will return to the family." Rosinante? Senor was still a little puzzled. Does this have any connection with this fruit? Rosinante lived in the Senor's impression. To sum it up, he would hear the young master mention such a younger brother from time to time, but he had never actually seen him for so many years. So much so that he occasionally doubts, does the young master have such a younger brother? Or, time has passed, maybe this guy named Rosinante has died long ago? Doflamingo still has complicated feelings about Rosinante, his younger brother. Although the soul is different, in fact, Doflamingo completely absorbed his past self, and the two sides are completely integrated, regardless of each other. Therefore, whether it is past memories or feelings, when Doflamingo thinks back, he can always feel it clearly. It has to be said that Doflamingo does have deep feelings for Rosinante. He vaguely remembered that when he was so hungry that he couldn't eat, with Doflamingo's selfish personality, he could distribute the looted bread to Rosinante first, and Rosinante ate more than him. It can be seen how much Doflamingo takes care of Rosinante. It can be said that my mother is weak and sick, and my father is a fool full of naive fantasies. The two of them cannot be counted on at all. Doflamingo can survive all those years because of himself, and Rosinante can survive because of Doflamingo's assistance and care. Later, Rosinante disappeared for more than 10 years, and after reuniting with Doflamingo, Doflamingo didn't even doubt his younger brother, and directly granted him the status of the highest cadre of the Donquixote family. Rosinante pretended to be mentally ill and unable to speak, and Doflamingo took him everywhere to seek medical advice. Perhaps at some point, Doflamingo thought about nurturing his blood brother well, letting him eat op fruit in the future, sacrificing his brother, so that he can live forever or something. But in fact, if you think about it carefully, you can understand a logical misunderstanding. That is, how could Doflamingo dare to be 100% sure that he will definitely be able to get the op fruit? You know, when Rosinante came back, op fruit didn't even have a hair. So, maybe Doflamingo had some bad thoughts about Rosinante, but from a practical point of view, he really didn't say anything about Rosinante. And in this case, Rosinante betrayed him and his family. Do you think that when Doflamingo pulled the trigger and shot Rosinante to death on Mignon Island, it really did not matter what he showed? Of course, at this time Doflamingo knew exactly what kind of person his younger brother was. Combined with Doflamingo, the two brothers seem to be two sides of one body. Doflamingo represents absolute evil, while Rosinante is unbelievably kind. So Doflamingo is also very clear. Just like Rosinante can't save him Doflamingo from the dark abyss. It is absolutely impossible for him, Doflamingo, to drag a Holy Mother, like Rosinante into the darkness, polluting his kind and bright character. Otherwise, Rosinante would not have died. Perhaps in the original story, when Doflamingo shot, it was because he fully understood this point. It is absolutely impossible for him and Rosinante to go the same way. That being the case, Doflamingo will naturally not think about how to transform Rosinante. It is unnecessary, because it cannot be transformed at all. Think about it. How to use him. As for killing Rosinante directly, that is indeed not advisable. Doflamingo has already been charged with killing his father, so there is no absolute need for him. He does not want to bear the reputation of killing his younger brother again. Of course, this is not the main reason. If there is really no way, Doflamingo will not be polite if he should do it. The main reason is that Rosinante has a special identity. He is the adopted son of Sengoku. If Doflamingo kills Rosinante directly without saying anything, then he and Sengoku, the Marine Admiral, the future Marine Admiral, can be said to have formed a deadly enmity. This is not good for Doflamingo's many future plans. And now, looking at the clone fruit in his hand, Doflamingo has a bold idea. As the saying goes, changing a civet cat for a prince. Isn't it too much for me to change Sengoku for an adopted son? Waiting for that guy Rosinante to catch, on his own initiative, and then replace him directly, isn't this going to be incorporated into Marine's system right away? Naval Headquarters Marineford. In Sengoku Admiral's office, at this time Sengoku was looking at the documents on the table with a serious face, unable to press the seal in his hand for a long time. Seeing Sengoku's performance, Garp said, "Hey, Sengoku. If you really can't make up your mind, then don't agree." Hearing this, Sengoku softened his expression a little, looked at Garp, and said softly, "Garp. As a parent, you can't hold back your children after all, right?" At this time, the document on Sengoku's desk is Rosinante's identity file. Once his seal is printed, Rosinante's file will be kept in absolute secrecy from then on, except for a few Marine bosses who have the right to investigate outside. It is impossible for other Marines to see this file again. At the same time, all traces of Rosinante's past in Marine will be completely eliminated by Marine using various methods. At that time, Rosinante's apparent identity will no longer have anything to do with Marine. After hearing Sengoku's words, Garp was also stunned for a moment, and his expression of watching the show became more complicated. He sat on the sofa, holding a teacup as if warming his hands, and said softly, "Yeah. I can't help it. Rosinante wants to throw everything away, go to North Blue, go to Donquixote Doflamingo's side, and help Marine obtain Doflamingo's information, so that in the future, when Marine makes a move, he can wipe out the entire Donquixote family." Sengoku disagreed at first, and fiercely opposed Rosinante's idea. He was worried that Rosinante would not be able to fight against this bad breed of Doflamingo, and he would lose his life in that time. But Rosinante did not give up, insisted on his own ideas, and must go. Perhaps, in his heart, he regards stopping and ending Doflamingo's crimes as his natural mission? "Admiral, do you think I am far inferior to Doflamingo?" This is Rosinante's cry. After Sengoku Admiral heard Rosinante's cry, he felt complicated and didn't know what to say, but he knew that he could no longer stop Rosinante. So in the end, he could only grit his teeth and agree to Rosinante's wishes. Just like back then, Garp clearly wanted to train his son Drago to be an excellent Marine, but in the end, Drago left Marine without hesitation. Will Garp agree with Drago's approach? He won't. He just couldn't hold back his own child in the end, that's all. Sengoku and Garp looked at each other in silence. After a long time, Sengoku gritted his teeth and pressed the seal in his hand on the document. From then on, Rosinante will be an intelligence officer secretly dispatched by the Marine Intelligence Department to the North Blue Donquixote family, and his identity level is absolutely confidential. After putting down the seal in his hand, Sengoku seemed to be limp all over, and leaned on the back of the seat. After a while, he changed the subject. "Garp, how is Roger's tracking going?" "There is no progress. The latest news is that members of the Roger Pirates have been sighted on transit islands and ports around the world. At least from this situation, it is true that the Roger Pirates should be disbanded, and the crew have all gone their separate ways. Stuff, scattered all over the world." Garp shook his head. "It's really hard to deal with when they are in a group, but it's even more difficult when they are broken up like this. Zhang said, pushing the frame on the bridge of her nose. At first, when the Roger Pirates announced their disbandment, Marine had always been skeptical. But now, according to the situation, the Roger Pirates are really cool. Raftel. Garp touched his chin, and then said, "What kind of secret is it hiding?" Sengoku glanced at Garp, and then said, "I don't know, but I advise you not to be too curious." Ah. Garp laughed loudly and said, "Are you doubting that my position will be shaken by this?" "No. As a comrade in arms who have walked together for decades, I am sure that your position will not be wavered, Garp," Sengoku said seriously. Whether it's him or Garp, for veterans like them who have reached the absolute top of the Marine, experienced decades of ups and downs, and seen too much darkness and responsibility in the world, the position will not waver casually. They are very clear that there is a deep darkness hidden behind the world government, and they are also very clear that what Marine represents is not pure justice. But they are even more aware that if there is no Marine, and there are no people like them who carry heavy burdens but still insist on their positions, then this sea will only become more chaotic and more senseless. In fact, Zephyr is the same. If he hadn't suffered several major changes and was betrayed by Marine, then his fate would not have been so miserable. When a person is at such a fork in the road, if there is no one to help, it is easy to make a mistake. Just like in the top battle, if Sengoku hadn't suppressed Garp, no matter whether Garp could kill Sakazuki, once he did it in this live broadcast, it meant that his Marine career had come to an end. Rosinante left Naval Headquarters Marineford and went secretly to North Blue. At this time, although Doflamingo has some ideas, he still doesn't know anything about his cheap brother coming so soon. In the courtyard of the Donquixote family residence, Doflamingo was sitting on a deck chair, and the huge parasol just shrouded his surroundings in shadow, helping him to block the sunlight that disgusted him. Many cadres on Mignon Island gathered here at this time. In the center of the crowd, there is a dining table with drinks, fruit plates, meals and so on. At first glance, it looks like the cadres of Donquixote family are engaged in team building. Doflamingo held a list in his hand, on which was a large amount of information collected by the Donquixote family in the recent period. Number 1. Beckman, North Blue People. Chief Navigator of the Valtor Armed Transport Corps. This made Doflamingo a little surprised. Beckman was originally a navigator. In his impression, Beckman was later the deputy captain of the Red Hair Pirates, and the navigator of the Red Hair Pirates was someone else, who seemed to be called Snake. But now the information shows that this Beckman is the chief navigator of Volto's Armed Transport Regiment, which surprised Doflamingo very much. Because, according to the information, Lafitte, who ranks second, should be in West Blue. But there is no such person. I don't know if this guy hasn't become a security officer yet, or if he is not in West Blue, or because the intelligence of the Donquixote family in West Blue is far inferior to that in North Blue. So I can't find it. Anyway, this guy Lafitte was not found. Originally, Doflamingo planned to find Lafitte, and then tricked him into treating him as his own navigator. Now it seems that Lafitte cannot be found for the time being, and he thought that the position of navigator would be vacant. As a result, Beckman is also a navigator. Isn't that a coincidence? The slightly flawed thing is that Beckman's personality is a bit in conflict with his Doflamingo. Because according to intelligence, Beckman is a playboy. There are some dancing girls, drinking girls and so on. And Doflamingo is not bad, he is also very caring, but his level is slightly higher than that of Beckman. Beckman likes to find dancers, hostesses and so on. For Doflamingo, if you directly find some beauties such as celebrities and models from North Blue to hold a party, the grade must be better than any dancers. Damn it, if I really want to find this guy, he won't steal the limelight from me, will he? Doflamingo thought a little funny in his heart. But for the great cause, for Don Quixote to be great again, he decided to find a way to recruit Beckman. After all, this is a serious Emperor's deputy player, and he is much better than a watery Emperor's deputy like Quinn. Comparing the experiences of the two, we can see the gap. Quinn meets Marine Admiral and gets sucked an F***ked by Aramaki. Beckman. Hold still, Kizaru. Don't talk about whether you can beat it. Anyway, this momentum is powerful. And Doflamingo also has an idea in his heart. If he can join hands with Beckman, he will go to Sky Island to take down the Thunderfruit. With Beckman's talent, coupled with the so-called invincible Thunderfruit, Paluzolino, who may not be able to fight at that time, will not move. In addition to Beckman and Lafitte, Doflamingo also added a lot of talents in his impression to intelligence. like Bartholomew Kuma, Moria, Mahawk, Crocodile, Bullet, etc. Now a look at the gathered intelligence. Bartholomew Kuma is currently the king of the South Blue Sorbet Kingdom. He has worked hard to develop the Sorbet Kingdom very well, but it seems that at a certain world summit, he once proposed a motion to cancel the Sky Gold. Not surprisingly, his motion was defeated. Seeing this, Doflamingo felt a little funny in his heart. He guessed that Bartholomew Kuma, who is now working hard to govern, was inexplicably given the title of tyrant, and was kicked off the throne. He became a member of the Song Ming army. The reason, it is very likely that he proposed this motion on the World Summit. Just kidding. You suggest that the world government cancel Tianshangjian? Just looking at your affiliation, you don't have the same heart with the government of the world. Even Alabasta, the thorn in the head, didn't dare to propose such a proposal. How dare you, the kingdom of Sorby? In fact, Bartholomew Kuma is not on the same path as pirates. He later became a pirate because he used his identity to become 7 warlords of the sea to achieve some ulterior motives. There is no doubt that Bartholomew Kuma and his Doflamingo can't get along, and the two people's subjective opinions should be very conflicting. Thinking of this, Doflamingo silently crossed out the column about Bartholomew Kuma in the information and ignored it. Old Bebe, you should still be a prototype of a pacifist. Looking further down, Gecko Moria, from West Blue, is different from Lafayette, who cannot be found. Moria is still quite famous in West Blue. He is not a mafia member that is characteristic of West Blue. Blue's major mafia clashes. He is rebellious and arrogant. The last time he appeared in West Blue, he clashed with the local branch Marine. He fought a lot and killed many Marines. I am afraid that this guy will be recognized as a pirate by Marines soon. Since then, it has been a long time since Moria has no intelligence information, and it is not known where the person is. Doflamingo thought about it. There is no need to look for this guy. When Roger is executed, go to the Logue town of East Blue. He will naturally be able to see him, then go and ask. See if he is willing to join the Quixote family. There is also news about Mahawk's words. It is said that he appeared in the first half of the Grand Line. His whereabouts are very chaotic and cannot be speculated, but it seems that he is looking for swordsmen from all over the world to challenge. For one thing, if Doflamingo went to look for him, he would probably be exhausted, and he might not be able to find him, a man who dared to ride the waves with a small sampan, but if he went to Logue Town, he would basically not miss it. And then there is Crocodile. Unlike them, Crocodile is very strong. When Doflamingo was still selling Nige in North Blue, Crocodile had already made some names in the New World. This guy has also fought against Douglas Bullet, the former member of the Roger Pirates, the successor of the Ghost, several times. At the same time, Crocodile is very arrogant. A few days ago, this guy was featured in a newspaper once. The reason is that the Whitebeard pirates ended their travels abroad and the news of their return to New World spread, and then Rockdale in New World spoke loudly that he would challenge Beard or something. He said in the newspaper that Whitebeard should prepare his last words, and that he would turn Whitebeard into a mummy and send it to the National Museum in Alabasta, where it will be exhibited with the ancient mummies dug out of the desert. I don't know if he was killed by Whitebeard now. It would be the same if he hadn't been beaten to death. When Roger was executed, this guy would comb his hair to look like an adult and look around Logue Town. But to be honest, Doflamingo is not very hopeful and expecting to reach a consensus with Crocodile. Because it seems that Crocodile and Doflamingo belong to the type of natural conflict. In the original story, the relationship was not very good. But this is not the key point. The key point is that Crocodile is too arrogant, let alone being someone's younger brother, even partnering with someone, he feels ashamed. After that, Douglas Bullet, this guy is easy to talk about. It is completely possible to want him to be your little brother. The steps are also very simple. Find him, convince him, he will definitely agree to be your little brother. But at the same time, he will regard you as his own target and is always ready to kill you, so he does not have the strength and confidence to suppress Bullet all the time, so it is best not to provoke him. And just so, Doflamingo felt that he had the strength and confidence to meet him. However, Bullet is alone, his whereabouts are a mystery, and he is basically wandering in New World. It is difficult for Marine and the world's top intelligence agencies to find him. With the current level of the Donquixote family, don't think too much about it for now. After going to New World, you can try your luck. Or ask Crocodile when the time comes. After all, the old Crocodile can always find Bullet to play 2 tricks with him. Maybe there is some special way? Then, there are still some pretty good talents, but most of them are no such person. Judging from the current situation, Doflamingo thinks it's better to take Beckman down first. Thinking of this, Doflamingo looked at Virgo and asked, Virgo, what is this? Volto Armed Transport Group, what organization is it? Virgo is currently the top cadre of the Donquixote family in charge of intelligence, and the above information is basically collected by him. Upon hearing Doflamingo's inquiry, Virgo, who was chatting with Senor and others, walked over to Doflamingo with a plate of baked rice cakes. Doflamingo looked up, just in time to see the baked rice cake sticking to his face. Obviously, Virgo didn't know it, and Doflamingo didn't mean to remind him. See, Virgo quickly replied. The Volto Armed Transport Group is a shipping company that has been active in our North Blue in recent years. It is said that the parent company is in New World, and the boss is called Umit. The business is quite big. Oh. Doflamingo raised his brows. Umit. He had the impression that he was the guy who became the shipping master after more than 20 years. Virgo continued. In some places, our Donquixote family's ships are difficult to pass by. When we have no experience, we will hire the Volto Armed Transport Group. Their reputation is very good. We have cooperated many times and are very happy. Is that so? Are you on good terms with us? Doflamingo nodded and said. The dark world is not all intrigues, fighting and killing, and it is impossible for the Donquixote family to monopolize all the dark businesses of North Blue, such as the large-scale transportation industry. The Quixote family can't handle it. The main reason is that the Donquixote family's own transportation capacity is very loaded. Smuggling. How can you make money if you don't work hard? Therefore, it is reasonable to have a close relationship with these companies and organizations in the transportation industry. Thinking of this, Doflamingo didn't hesitate any longer, and immediately said, Find out where this man named Ben Beckman is now, and then I'm going to meet him in person. This Ben Beckman ranks first in intelligence. I wanted to ask before, is he very good? Virgo asked a little curiously. He originally thought that the ones who could be ranked first on this list should be ruthless people like Bullet and Crocodile. What is this Ben Beckman? Isn't he a navigator of the transport regiment? According to the investigation, except that he is similar to his young master in hobbies and belongs to the type of playboy, the rest, I don't see how special he is. Not a capable person either. When Doflamingo heard this, the corners of his mouth curled up, and he put on a smile and said, Fur, very powerful, interesting. However, considering the mentality of the cadres in his own family, Doflamingo finally did not say, he alone is more powerful than all the cadres in our family combined. Virgo didn't ask any more questions, and nodded immediately. Okay, I know about Dover, then I'll go and confirm his whereabouts now. It's hard work for you, Virgo. Doflamingo pushed the sunglasses on the bridge of his nose and said. Picking up the glass of red wine at the side table, and taking a sip, Doflamingo was also thinking about it. Now, it has been a while since the Roger Pirates announced their disbandment. If there is no accident, Rayleigh is probably already living a good life with a rich woman on the Saboti archipelago, and Roger, 9 out of 10, is already in South Blue's Batley Island, experiencing the last time of his life with Rouge. This process should take about a year. Calculating the time, it will probably be in the middle of 1500 years ago before Roger will surrender himself to Chinese. There is still some time before now, and Doflamingo is planning to go to Sky Island after he has dealt with Beckman. Grabbed the thunder fruit, then went to East Blue, should be able to catch up with the wave of excitement. Seeing people beheaded at Kaishaku, this is not a good thing to miss. North Blue, Horsegren Island. This is an island near the Holy Land of Mariejois in North Blue. Therefore, the island is also very prosperous, and there are many ships and fleets coming and going around North Blue. Previously, the fleet of the Volto Armed Transport Regiment returned from Mariejois and anchored here. But now, a small three-masted sailing ship like a flamingo is slowly sailing into this port. That's right, this boat is exactly Doflamingo's boat, the newly built large flagship, which has not yet been delivered by the capital of Seven Waters. Anyway, there is no need to bring the giants this time, so Doflamingo came directly on Doflamingo. When they sailed earlier, Doflamingo got the news, and judged that the Volto Armed Transport Group would return here to take a rest after arriving at Mariejois to unload. So Doflamingo also went straight here. Now that he arrived at the port, he saw that there were many people on the pier, replenishing cargo for the ships flying the flag of the Volto Armed Transport Group. Hey, look, that ship is so strange, it looks like a bird, ha ha ha. On the pier, after a coolie unloaded a package, he pointed to Doflamingo, which happened to be parked in the port, and smiled. Said. Another older coolie wiped the sweat from his forehead, and just glanced in the direction the guy was pointing. Then his face changed suddenly, and he slapped his finger off and said, I don't want to kill you. You just came to North Blue. Ah? That's right. I just came here last month. The young laborer said in confusion. Teach you a rule. North Blue is not a peaceful place. Don't point at the ship when you see it. The ship just now is Doflamingo, the flagship of the most vicious Donquixote family in North Blue, and it also has a bounty of 100 million. The ship of Don Quixote Doflamingo, the great pirate of 96 million Baileys. Annoy him, and we will all die. The old worker warned. Pirate. The young laborer was stunned for a moment, then swallowed his saliva, and then looked at the warship of a certain branch of North Blue Marine who was resting in the port, and then said, Don't we need to report to Marine? If you want to die, you can go. The old worker muttered, not bothering to talk to this idiot anymore. At the same time, Doflamingo also got off the boat. He glanced at the small warship moored not far from his side, and left the port directly without saying anything or worrying. But at this time on the small warship, a certain Marine soldier swallowed and said, Colonel, don't need to do something? Marine, with the branch colonel's epaulets on his body, turned his head and glared at this guy, then said, Don Quixote Doflamingo can fight fiercely with the admiral of the headquarters. What should I do? You want me to sacrifice early? You sit down. In my place, right? Stupid. After scolding, the colonel said directly, Okay, hurry up and sail. Let's get out of here, so as not to cause any trouble. Huh. The Marine was stunned for a moment, and then said, But we haven't got any supplies yet. When is it? Still thinking about supplies. Just enough. The colonel kicked the little Marine's ass, cursing. Just kidding. Not to mention that there was a hint from the headquarters to tell the Marines of the North Blue branches not to provoke the Don Quixote family for some reason. Even if there is no hint of this in the headquarters, can you see which Marine branch in North Blue dares to make trouble with the Don Quixote family? In addition, in the past, everyone was a good brother. When Don Quixote Doflamingo did not become a pirate, every year the major North Blue Marine branches could receive letters from the Don Quixote family red packets. I don't know if it will be available this year. Damn, those bastard Marines in the headquarters are always trying to cut off our money. That's right, in fact, Marines' internal problems are still very serious, especially the branch Marine of the Four Seas. Basically all of them have corruption problems. This is also impossible. The sea is too vast, so whether it is the Marine or the world government, the dominance will gradually decline with the distance and traffic problems. Sahai is too far away from the headquarters of Marineford, so it is normal for each branch to have its own ideas. If you change to a more honest base leader, the situation may be better, but if you meet someone with selfish intentions, basically the entire base will be affected, followed by corruption. Along the way, Doflamingo didn't encounter anything. Unlike when he was in West Blue, he was in North Blue, where he was admired by thousands of people. When walking on the road, people around him would automatically stay away. Soon, Doflamingo arrived at his destination. He stood at the door of the tavern on Horsegren Island and looked up at the signboard. Guns and Roses. Doflamingo touched his chin, and then said, Senor, right here? According to the information given by Virgo, this is the right place, young master. The senor who followed Doflamingo responded. Okay. Doflamingo smiled expectantly, and then pushed open the door of the tavern. Since it was noon, the business of the tavern was not very good, and the room was a little deserted. But in that corner, there was a table that was also very lively. On the entire table, there was only one man, sitting on a chair, holding a wine glass in his hand, and biting a cigarette in his mouth. He was happily bragging about something to the women around him. Taking another look, there were 6 women sitting on the table, dressed very coolly and boldly, with the feeling of a few pieces of cloth tied with ropes all over their bodies, and the 2 on the left and right were hugging the man. Their bodies were about to stick into it. If there is no accident, these should be the dancers and wine hostesses in the store. Good guy, they were all taken care of by that man. The room was a bit dark. After all, it is a tavern, you have bright lights. People are still reluctant to come. It is not easy to do dirty things in a place that is too bright. But even if the light was bad, Doflamingo still had a clear look at the man's appearance. Black hair, handsome, but not too handsome face, almost 30 years old, with a romantic and chic temperament, with a small braid tied behind his head. Wearing a black short-sleeved, brown overalls, with a revolver hanging from his waist. That's right, Beckman. At that time, a sea beast appeared. The head of the sea beast was like a lion, but the lower body was like a fish. The local people called it a lion-headed fish. They said it was very ferocious, and many ships would be eaten by it. The crew was terrified at the time, but I was different. Beckman put his arms around the dancer next to him, bragging. If you look carefully, you will find that his arms naturally follow the dancer's shoulders and hang down on her chest. His big hands cover the only fabric, and when it comes to excitement, he squeezes it twice. The arrival of Doflamingo did not attract anyone's attention. After all, this is a tavern. If someone comes, just take a look. Why drink? Plus Beckman was bragging, so naturally he didn't pay attention to Doflamingo. After confirming his identity, Doflamingo walked towards Beckman at his own pace. It was too late to say it, but I raised my hand and shot it, just in time to blow its eyes out. That guy looks like he's gone crazy, Beckman said braggingly. As I was talking, I suddenly realized, why is there someone leaning against the pillar next to it? Look again. Quixote Doflamingo. As a North Blue native and a boat runner, Beckman naturally knows what Doflamingo looks like. However, he didn't have the fear of Doflamingo like ordinary people. After seeing Doflamingo's appearance clearly, he frowned slightly, feeling that trouble was coming. He stopped the original topic, patted the backs of the dancers on the left and right and said, Okay, let's go here first, I have guests. Huh? Who is it? The belated dancers followed Beckman's gaze and looked back. Under the dim light, the face of the person leaning on the pillar was vaguely seen, and then the faces of the dancers changed drastically, and they didn't dare to delay anything, and hurriedly got up and left the place. As someone who works in such a well-informed and complex place as a tavern, how could he not recognize Doflamingo? Go 2 more steps forward, and there is now a bounty notice for Doflamingo hanging on the signboard. Doflamingo, who was leaning on the pillar, saw that everyone had dispersed, smiled slightly and said, F you Furfur. Sorry for interrupting your good business. Beckman casually took out a new glass from the wine cabinet behind him, put it on the table and said, Would you like a glass? Doflamingo got up from the pillar, took 2 steps, sat opposite Beckman, and then said, All right. As soon as the words fell, Beckman flicked the cap of the bottle with his thumb, and poured a glass of wine for Doflamingo fluently. After finishing, he pushed the wine glass in front of Doflamingo and said, But let me say first, these are all cheap goods. It may not meet the appetite of your young master of the Don Quixote family. Do you know when I first drank in North Blue? Doflamingo smiled after hearing this. Beckman seemed a little curious, and asked, When? About 8 or 9 years ago. I picked up a bottle with only 1/3 of the wine left in the trash can in the back alley of a pub. That was the first drink I drank in North Blue. I don't remember if I'm wrong, it's the brand. Old Bunker's Ale. Doflamingo raised his glass and downed it. After putting down the empty wine glass, Doflamingo breathed a sigh of relief and said, Ha! It's still the damn taste, it hasn't changed at all. On the opposite side, Beckman laughed and said, Ha 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 ha. The taste of this wine is sour and astringent, it's really damn good. Seeing that the cigarette in Beckman's hand was about to burn out, Doflamingo took out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket, took out 2 and said, Would you like another one? Beckman wanted to refuse at first, but after glancing at the cigarette case in Doflamingo's hand, he asked in surprise, Archman Grove. Oh, you're very knowledgeable. Doflamingo grinned, revealing a row of white teeth, and said with a smile. Alkaman mangrove is a huge ancient tree that grows in Sabaody archipelago. Of course, the one in Doflamingo's hand is not a tree, but a cigarette named after the Alkaman mangrove tree. Beckman is an old smoker. Doflamingo thinks that sometimes he can't leave his cigarette, but he can't compare with Beckman, because this guy really can't leave his mouth. He always bites a cigarette. It is precisely because I am an old smoker that I know the rareness of this Arky mangrove. Taking the cigarette from Doflamingo, Beckman first passed it through the tip of his nose, took a deep breath and said, It seems that there is really an aroma from Sabaody archipelago. Afterwards, he took out the lighter, lit the cigarette, and after taking a sip, he said with satisfaction, This taste is really good, as if you were standing on the top of the red line, looking at the blue sea in the distance, vaguely. There is also a hint of fragrance from the Alcyon mangrove. Doflamingo was not as particular as Beckman. After lighting a cigarette, he exhaled smoke and said, You bought me a glass of wine, and I asked you to smoke a cigarette, which is reasonable. I bought you the Old Bunker Ale from the worst street in North Blue, and you bought me a cigarette that can only be bought on Mariejois. No, it's the Alkyman mangrove cigarettes that appear. Looking at it this way, you are really generous, which also proves that you must have something to do with me. Are you here for me? Beckman said immediately. Smart. Doflamingo frowned. Knocking the cigarette ash in his hand, Beckman asked curiously, There are rumors that this brand of cigarettes is specially supplied to celestial dragons, is it true or not? Really? Doflamingo nodded and said, Therefore, only a small part will flow out of the god's house, which is highly sought after by the noble class of Mariejois. In fact, it is a serious violation in the eyes of celestial dragons that this kind of cigarettes flow out of God's house and are taken by other people, but those nobles like to pursue this kind of things that are of the same grade as celestial dragons. So there are always some bold guys who can get it. No wonder I've only heard about it, but I've never seen it. Beckman's eyes revealed a hint of understanding, and then he said, "It is said that your Donquixote family is connected to the sky, and now it seems that it is true. Blue, after smoking this cigarette, it seems that your relationship on Mariejois is very strong. Donquixote family's business can reach the current scale, and these relationships are inseparable. Currently, you are offering a bounty of 196 million shells. You are a big pirate, and when I came here, I happened to see a marine warship at the port, but you didn't mean to shy away from it at all. At the same time, since Cervantes Island, I have never heard that Marine has done anything to you. What kind of action? Come to think of it, Marine's troubles have already been settled by you, right?" "That's right." Doflamingo picked up the old bunker's ale bottle from the table and poured himself a glass. It is said that Beckman is smart and has the highest IQ, and now he has a glimpse of his demeanor. Then here comes the problem. The development of the Donquixote family is in full swing, and you haven't encountered any troubles yourself, so you must not come to me because there is any specific matter that needs my help to solve. In this way, you are not in trouble because of something. Come, but because of people. Judging from your friendly attitude towards me, you are coming for me, right? Beckman analyzed again. Doflamingo felt that it would be boring for him to continue his analysis, so he immediately nodded and said, "Yes, but you don't have to guess anymore. I came here to find you, and I came to you because I want you to be part of our Donquixote family." "I refuse." Beckman refused immediately. This straightforward refusal made Doflamingo roll his eyes and said, "Don't you think about the treatment or something? Although I don't think I have shown anything special, since the young master of the Donquixote family can come to me in person, it means that you should have discovered some differences in me, so, may I ask, do you think I look like someone who is short of money?" Beckman asked calmly, exhaling a smoke ring. Doflamingo looked at his clothes, then at the table of cheap drinks in the ordinary cigarette case, nodded calmly and said, "Yes." Beckman's face twitched, and then he said, "You can't judge whether I am rich by my food and drink expenses, but by hobbies. I know, but your hobby is beauties, but the women you find are basically dancers and hostesses in taverns. To be honest, there is no grade," Doflamingo said bluntly. Beckman was silent for a moment. Even though he was extremely smart, he had to admit that what Doflamingo said was really reasonable. But Beckman shook his head after all and said, "You don't need to mention any treatment to me. If you are not interested, you are not interested. No matter whether you Donquixote family want to be the overlord of North Blue, or you want to become some powerful characters in the dark world. Anyway, I neither are interested." When he said this, Beckman picked up the wine glass from the table and took a sip for himself, with a slightly bored look in his eyes. "North Blue?" Doflamingo touched his chin, and then said, "Sorry, you must have misunderstood our Donquixote family." After a short pause, Doflamingo said, "North Blue is big, but after all, it's just a small place. Our Donquixote family never wanted a title like the overlord of North Blue. For the dark world, it's just a matter of convenience." Beckman seemed to be a little interested at this time, and asked, "Then what do you want?" "The world?" Doflamingo hesitated for a moment, then asked tentatively. Beckman froze for a moment, shook his head and said, "It's not interesting." "Then let me put it another way." Doflamingo laughed and said, "Walk into the wildest storm, go to the farthest isolated island, see the most beautiful scenery, fight the strongest enemy, sleep with the most beautiful woman, drink the strongest wine, smoke the best smoke. How about it?" "Ha ha ha ha," Beckman said, laughing, "I like that. Very well. Everything I just said, as long as you agree to join my Donquixote family, I am willing to share with you. Well, of course, except for the most beautiful woman," Doflamingo said with a smile. "You say that, it's hard for me to do things for you. After all, among what you said just now, the only two things I value are the most beautiful women and the best cigarettes." Beckman rolled his eyes and said, "Each according to their ability," Doflamingo said without hesitation. "Fair." Beckman agreed immediately. But after a short pause, Beckman hesitated, and finally couldn't help asking, "I often hear people say that your Donquixote family often holds pool parties, right? It is said that our North Blue stars, models, beauty pageants champions and others will be invited to participate? If you have something to say, just say it." Doflamingo rolled his eyes at Beckman, an old idiot. Beckman coughed and said in a serious tone, Please bring me one next time, thank you. Okay. Doflamingo responded with a smile. Beckman knocked the cigarette ash in his hand, picked up the wine glass from the table, touched Doflamingo and said, "Then please give me more advice from now on, my lord." From the beginning to the end, Beckman really didn't ask a question about treatment. Because he knew very well that when the young master of the Don Quixote family appeared in front of him and wanted to recruit him, then this treatment must be the best treatment from the Don Quixote family. So he doesn't have to ask. Secondly, if Doflamingo himself did not come here today, if any member of the Don Quixote family came instead, Beckman would not have joined the Don Quixote family, because that meant that the Quixote family did not really value him. Then there is no need to join. In the end, it also depends on the eye. No matter what kind of reputation, status, or power Don Quixote Doflamingo has in North Blue, these are all indifferent things to Beckman. Only eyesight is very important. If he doesn't like Doflamingo, if he thinks the two are not compatible, then no matter what Doflamingo says, he will not join. But looking at it now, he still thinks Doflamingo is quite interesting and fits his temper well. All in all, it seems that during this meeting, the two of them didn't talk much about their interests, and it all depends on the degree of compatibility between the two parties. Looking at Beckman's glass, Doflamingo also picked up the glass of sour ale, touched him with a smile and said, "Welcome to Don Quixote family, trust me, you won't be disappointed." "If you are disappointed, I will leave without hesitation," Beckman said very bluntly. "No problem," Doflamingo replied confidently. After they drank a few more glasses, they got up together and prepared to leave the tavern. "Don't you need to submit a letter of resignation to your fleet?" Doflamingo opened the door of the tavern first and walked out. Senor was standing outside the door right now, and just now he persuaded everyone who wanted to go in. Now seeing that my young master came out with that guy named Beckman, talking happily, no need to ask, the young master must have taken care of it. This didn't surprise Senor, he trusted Doflamingo's abilities so much. "Young master." Senor greeted. Doflamingo nodded, and then introduced to Beckman. "This is Senor Peak, he is my good brother. Well, of course, after you join the family, we are all a family, and I will also treat it as my blood brother." "Nice to meet you, Senor." Beckman smiled and held out a hand. "It's nice to meet you too, Mr. Beckman." Senor shook hands with Beckman lightly. After the two chatted for a few words, followed Doflamingo and walked towards the port. It was obvious that Doflamingo didn't intend to stay here for anything. It was also at this time that Beckman picked up the previous topic and said, "There is no need to submit any resignation letter. Our men at sea don't have so many rules and regulations. When we arrive at the port, I will talk to the foreman and it will be over." Furfurfur, makes sense. Doflamingo responded with a smile. "After you found me, you couldn't wait to leave this island. Seems like there is something else going on after that, right? So where is our next trip?" Beckman asked. "Sky." Doflamingo pointed to Sky's path. Beckman froze for a moment, then looked up at the blue Sky's path. "I don't quite understand what you said." "Sky Island." Doflamingo said again. "Sky Island." Beckman asked in surprise, "Does Sky Island really exist?" "I can tell you responsibly, there really is," Doflamingo responded. Ha 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 ha. "I was very interested in it right away, although it was the right choice to agree to join you just now," Beckman said with a big smile. As soon as he joined the Don Quixote family, he was about to go on an adventure to the legendary Sky Island, and Beckman felt very satisfied. But after a short pause, he asked again, "Then what is the purpose of our going to Sky Island? Speaking of which, it's related to you, and I haven't asked about it yet. Do you reject the power of devil fruit?" Doflamingo asked. Beckman was silent for a moment, and then said, "How should I put it, it's very complicated." Before Doflamingo could ask, Beckman continued, "On the one hand, I am very curious, so I want to experience everything, so for the treasure of the sea, devil fruit, which can give people strange abilities, also I am very interested. But I am also very worried. Rumors say that after eating devil fruit, you will be cursed by the sea and become a landlubber. You know, I am a navigator. If I become a landlubber, it's troublesome, of course. This is not the main reason. The main reason is that once you become a landlubber, you can't go to the swimming party happily, right?" Doflamingo gave Beckman a blank look and said. Beckman grinned. "That's right. That's because your money is not in place," Doflamingo said without hesitation. "As long as the money is in place, let alone you are a landlubber, even if you don't have legs and hands, you can still participate in the pool party happily, believe me." "What do you believe?" "Ah, yes, damn it, You are clearly a capable person, but you often hold pool parties, so you must be very experienced. Beckman clapped his hands and said. But soon, he said again. Judging from the current communication, you plan to take me to Sky Island to find the devil fruit and let me eat it, right? That's right. Doflamingo nodded. I'm very grateful for your kindness, but having said that, I'm still a little picky eater. Baker rubbed his chin and said. He didn't explicitly reject Doflamingo, but it can be regarded as setting a limit for Doflamingo. You don't even say hello to me, but you want to make me a person with abilities. I don't mind this matter very much, but I do. The standard of devil fruit, if it's rubbish, don't bother me, I'm not interested. Doflamingo naturally recognized Beckman's voice, and at the same time, felt Beckman's inadvertent arrogance. It's normal, if a person like him is casually submissive to him, wouldn't it be strange? This is just the beginning. Doflamingo is confident, and in the following days, he will gradually convince Beckman. So he didn't care about these things. Doflamingo smiled immediately. Logia Thunderfruit. How about it? Beckman froze for a moment, looked at Senor, then at Doflamingo, and then asked. The rest of the Donquixote family, aren't they interested in this fruit? Before Doflamingo could speak, Senor said, how is it possible? As we all know, Thunderfruit is one of the top-notch abilities of Devil Fruit, and it is called invincible by the world. Not to mention the other cadres, even I am very excited. But after a pause, Senor continued, but it's a pity to say that the young master thinks that you are the one who is truly worthy of this devil fruit. These remarks really make me feel I am not convinced, so I hope you will not let down this trust. Beckman looked at Senor, turned his head and said to Doflamingo with a rare serious look, if I really got the thunder fruit, I will eat it, and your trust will never be let down. Beckman felt that what he said was very serious. With such an attitude, Doflamingo should understand and appreciate his sincerity, right? But if you take a closer look, you can see that Doflamingo didn't seem to hear what he said at all. Instead, he was standing in the middle of the street, with a surprised expression on his face, and complicated eyes looking at the distance. Following Doflamingo's line of sight, Beckman saw a slightly downcast man standing in the middle of the street not far away, looking at Doflamingo. Who is it? Beckman whispered to the Senor. Senor was also a little confused. After observing the figure carefully, he felt a little familiar, but he can be sure that he has never seen this person before. So Senor shook his head, indicating that he didn't know. At the same time, Doflamingo seemed to recover from his brief surprise, and he whispered softly, Rosinante. Beckman didn't understand the meaning of the name, but Senor suddenly realized it. Looking at it again, it turned out that the familiar feeling just now was because the figure on the opposite side was somewhat similar to his young master. Don Quixote Rosinante, according to legend, the younger brother of the young master, disappeared 8 years ago after the young master killed his own father with his own hands. Now, he actually appeared in front of the young master again. This guy Rosinante also looked possessed by an acting school, looked at Doflamingo, and then suddenly covered his head with his hands, and let out some painful muffled sounds. It was as if his dead memory suddenly attacked him. When Doflamingo saw Rosinante, he really had complicated emotions. On the one hand, he knew that Rosinante would be Sengoku's adopted son and a member of Marine if nothing happened. He appeared in front of him just to mess with him. But on the other hand, for this younger brother, Doflamingo does have some brotherly feelings. So at that moment, his emotions were a little complicated. But now that Rosinante has started to perform it, the complicated emotions just now dissipated in an instant. Hey. Put this on and pretend to have amnesia, right? Doflamingo cursed inwardly, but on the surface he still looked slightly worried. He walked forward a few steps and grabbed Rosinante, who was in a fit, asked with concern. Rosinante? Is that you, Rosinante? No, I won't admit my mistake. What's wrong with you? Rosinante trembled all over, as if he had encountered something very scary. He looked into Doflamingo's eyes with a tinge of fear. Perhaps, this is not entirely an acting skill. In fact, when he saw Doflamingo shoot his father to death with his own eyes, he really buried his fear of Doflamingo in his heart. Then, under Doflamingo's concerned eyes, Rosinante twitched violently, went into a seizure twice, and passed out directly. Doflamingo, who was supposed to match his performance, didn't tear it down, but yelled, Senor, go get the ship's doctor, go get Dr. Nelson, see him, see Rosinante, what's wrong with him. In the cabin of Doflamingo, Dr. Nelson took a stethoscope and re-examined Rosinante for the third time. Doflamingo was sitting on the small sofa opposite the hospital bed, with a serious and gloomy expression, Behind him stood 3 people, namely Beckman, Senor, and Mahabas, who was as fat as a huge ball. Glancing at Doflamingo's heavy expression, Beckman frowned slightly, feeling a little puzzled in his heart. Although Doflamingo seems to be in a very heavy mood, Beckman always feels that he does not have that kind of low pressure, and the depressing feeling is more like a performance? What's happening here? What's wrong? Lying there wondering what the hell is going on, isn't it your real blood brother? Your behavior like this makes me doubt the safety of your family. But Beckman didn't ask anything, because he can feel things, Senor, who follow Doflamingo all the year round, can't feel it. But these people didn't ask, so it's best not to ask yourself. After a while, Nelson put away his stethoscope, sat on the small bench, and rolled Rosinante's eyelids to observe. Also at this time, Doflamingo raised his hand and pushed the frame on the bridge of his nose, so that the sunglasses completely covered his half-exposed vision, and then asked, "Nelson, how is my brother? He's got it. What's wrong?" Nelson turned around with a puzzled expression, looked at Doflamingo and said, "I am ashamed to say, my lord, I have carefully examined Mr. Rosinante several times, and according to the conclusions I can draw, Mr. Rosinante's body she is very healthy and should have no illnesses." Beckman froze for a moment. "Are you sick?" Obviously he saw this guy named Rosinante on the island just now, and he started to go crazy when he saw Doflamingo. How could he not be sick? But it was only for a moment. Beckman looked at Doflamingo, who was anxious on the surface but seemed very calm inside, and understood a lot. Doflamingo. Was he aware of this in the first place? So what is he doing now? At the same time, Doflamingo said a little anxiously, "How could it be? I clearly saw Rosinante suddenly trembling and convulsing on the street, and then electrocuted to death in the hall." "Young master, this situation may not be physiological," Nelson quickly explained. "What do you mean by not being biological?" Senor asked along the way. "That is to say, Mr. Rosinante is in good health. He has no physical illnesses, but he may have been severely traumatized psychologically, which caused him to have violent mood swings when he saw you, young master, causing the pathological manifestations of tremors, convulsions, and fainting at that time," Dr. Nelson explained. Sure enough, after Dr. Nelson finished speaking, Doflamingo showed a painful expression again. Psychological resistance and trauma. Sure enough. Rosinante's disappearance back then was because I was frightened. All blame me, blame me. As he said that, Doflamingo squatted beside Rosinante's bed, stretched out his hand to hold Rosinante's hand, and said in a very sincere and serious tone, "Rosinante, you must have suffered a lot and suffered a lot over the years, right? Don't worry. Just like before, from now on, as long as I have a bite of Doflamingo, you will never be hungry." Here, Doflamingo gave an emotional output to his comatose brother, while the rest of the cadres looked at this scene, somewhat embarrassed, and Beckman could feel the hypocrisy in it, and stood there wishing to use it the toes dig out a 3-room and 1 living room. Just when Doflamingo recalled the time when he and Rosinante ran with the sunset on Mariejois and told about their lost childhood, Rosinante, who pretended to be comatose, really couldn't bear the boredom, and moved his fingers lightly, then a pair of eyes, confused and helpless, opened. "Rosinante, are you awake?" Doflamingo shook Rosinante's hand excitedly. Rosinante looked at Doflamingo in a confused manner, and then a flash of real fear flashed in his eyes, and he trembled, threw off Doflamingo's hands, hugged his knees, moved a few times on the bed, and curled up in the corner. There was a low growl of woo-woo in his throat, as if he was very wary of Doflamingo. "It's me, Rosinante, I'm your brother," Doflamingo said earnestly, approached patiently, and introduced himself. Following Doflamingo's sincerity statement, Rosinante also cooperated with Doflamingo's performance, and gradually, he seemed to remember many things. But he would frown and cover his head from time to time, and opened his mouth to say something, but he just couldn't speak, which really made Doflamingo almost not laugh out loud. After a while, Doflamingo seemed to have discovered something, and quickly looked at Nelson and said, "Nelson, what's wrong with my brother? Why doesn't he seem to be able to speak?" "Don't worry, my lord," Dr. Nelson quickly responded, and then said, "As I said just now, Mr. Rosinante's health is fine, and the reason why he can't speak now may be caused by psychological trauma. Yes, in this case, it will take a long time to heal the psychological trauma. I will continue to pay attention to Mr. Rosinante's situation, and he will definitely be cured." After Rosinante heard this, he crazily praised Nelson in his heart. "Yes, that's it. I am now a patient who cannot speak due to psychological trauma, and also lost the memory of Yin Huang. Only in this situation, the brother Doflamingo will relax his vigilance against himself, and will not ask himself where he has been fooling around all these years. Why did he appear again now? Pretend to be dumb. You can avoid answering many questions. Pretend to be mentally ill. You can cover up the hidden danger of amnesia. Perfect. But to be honest, Rosinante saw that Doflamingo cared about him so much, and recalled the brotherhood between the two of them in their childhood on Mariejois, and when they came to North Blue, they felt a little uncomfortable. But after thinking about the crimes and evils Doflamingo committed in North Blue these years, Rosinante became more determined, wanting to destroy Doflamingo's dark ambition. Soon, Doflamingo calmed down after talking a lot with Dr. Nelson. Since Rosinante will have strong mood swings when he sees me, then I shouldn't show up in front of him often in a short time, right? Doflamingo asked. That's right. During this time, it's best to let Mr. Rosinante take a good rest and rest for a while. Maybe his condition will improve a lot. Nelson nodded and responded. Hearing this, Doflamingo turned back to look at the three cadres behind him, and his eyes passed by Beckman and Senor, and finally stopped on Mahabas. He said, "Mabe, young master." Mahabas quickly responded. "You are the most caring and considerate person here. Rosinante is a patient now. I will ask you to take care of my ineffective younger brother," Doflamingo confessed. "Mahabe, young master, would you like to hear what you are saying? I am the most careful. Do you think my body looks like the kind that can take care of others? Okay, young master, you guys go out first. I'll check Mr. Rosinante again," Dr. Nelson said again. Doflamingo immediately nodded and said, Come out, Mahabas, I want to explain a few words to you." Soon, Doflamingo walked out of the medical room first. As soon as he went out, he lit a cigarette for himself and stuffed the remaining half-pack of cigarettes into Beckman's hand. Beckman was also impolite, directly took out one and lit it, exhaled a puff of smoke and said, "You can't smoke in the infirmary, it really suffocates me." Doflamingo didn't answer the call, and they quickly walked from the cabin to the deck. The sea breeze blew, bringing a touch of coolness, and then Doflamingo said, "Mahabe, from today on, you will hand over all the things at hand, and put all your focus on Rosinante." Although Mahabasi was very reluctant to become this nurse worker, but the young master has spoken, can he still say no? Therefore, he could only sigh helplessly, and then said, "Yes, my lord, I will take care of Rosinante meticulously and considerately." "No," Doflamingo exhaled lightly, and then said, "That guy is not sick at all, he is just pretending." Beckman's eyes lit up. Sure enough, Doflamingo judged it in this way, so is the main event coming? Pretending? Mahabas was very surprised and puzzled. "Well, I have been investigating my only younger brother for 8 years. After he disappeared, I never gave up looking for him. But you know why I didn't mention him much later, is it?" Doflamingo whispered. Senor recalled it. It seemed like such a strange thing. Then, he took the initiative to ask, "Why, young master?" "Because I found some top-secret information, Rosinante. After he disappeared, he was picked up by Marine Sengoku Admiral, and adopted him as his adopted son. Currently, Rosinante should be a lieutenant colonel in naval headquarters, working in the intelligence department, so he appeared in front of me. What do you mean?" Doflamingo knocked the cigarette ash in his hand, a look of indifference flashed in his eyes, and asked in a deep voice. Beckman understood this in a split second, but he didn't speak. Senor also seemed to have reacted, and said in a deep voice, "Rosinante is Marine's undercover agent. An intelligence agent who wants to lurk in our Donquixote family and obtain information?" Doflamingo exhaled smoke, nodded and said, "That's right." A fierce light flashed in Mahabasi's eyes, and he said in a deep voice, "Young master, do you want me to go?" As he spoke, he made a gesture of cutting his throat. Apparently, that meant that Mahabath was going to kill him, Rosinante. Beckman was stunned. "Boy, are you all so cruel? Although that guy may be Marine's undercover agent, but he is definitely our young master's younger brother. You just like this in front of the young master, discuss whether to kill him. Does it fit? No need for now." Doflamingo shook his head very calmly. And his calm appearance also opened Beckman's eyes. "Yes, it is indeed a family. They are discussing whether to kill your brother. You go like this? Young master, if you know that Rosinante is an undercover agent, why do you keep him? What if some information is really passed on by him? Wouldn't it be troublesome?" Senor also asked, puzzled. Obviously, Senor also supported Mahabasi's opinion, and directly got rid of Rosinante. "That's good, no one will compete for the family affection that the young master has towards us cadres." Doflamingo glanced at Beckman, then asked, "What do you think, Beckman?" Beckman immediately said, "It's really inappropriate. First, he is your own brother after all. Even if he is wrong, you shouldn't jump to conclusions like this. Second, as you said just now, young master, he is the adopted son of Admiral Sengoku of Naval Headquarters, and his status is indeed very special. If we get rid of him, then the enmity between us and Marine Admiral of Sengoku will be forged." "That's right." Doflamingo nodded immediately, and continued, "I'm not afraid of Marine, nor Sengoku, but there's no need to make an enemy like this. It's not conducive to the steps and plans I'm thinking about and planning. Rosinante will keep it for now." As he said that, he looked at Mahabath and said, "From today onwards, you will be responsible for taking care of Rosinante personally. I want you to observe him carefully, imitate him, and write down all his habits and details, and record them in your head. Do you understand?" "Understood." Mahabasi immediately agreed, but still asked with some doubts, "But young master, what is my purpose for doing this? Remember not long ago, we got a clone fruit from Paramecia." Doflamingo looked at Maha and said. Mahabasi was stunned for a moment, pointed to himself and said, "I eat." "If you don't mind," Doflamingo said softly. Mahabasi thought for a while, not to mention how much he looked forward to, but he didn't seem to be very repulsed, and he could tell that this matter was extremely important to the young master, and it was time for the West family to die. He waited for so many years, didn't he just want a chance to show his worth? So Mahabasi quickly replied in a deep voice, "No problem, my lord." "Well, you should first study and learn Rosinante's behavior. It is best to let him speak, learn his language and accent, and after you feel that you can successfully and meticulously imitate him, use your ability, become him. When the time comes, I will take care of my stupid little brother with food and drink, and put him in solitary confinement, and you will become the new Rosinante." Doflamingo patted Mahaba's shoulder. At the same time, Beckman also frowned and said, "In this way, not only can you pull out the nail sent by Marine, but you can also successfully replace the nail with your own. When the time is right, you can drive into Marine again. This move is very powerful." "Honestly." Doflamingo sighed, and said helplessly, "I, Don Quixote, Doflamingo, worked hard in North Blue and never provoked Marine's bastards, but what happened? Marine sent someone first. Cervantes, the stronghold of my Don Quixote family, was destroyed. At this point, I did not say that I would take revenge on Marine. It shows how tolerant I am to them. We have made some connections, and I hope that the Marines can stop in moderation. Let's go to the sky, each half of the way. Don't bother anyone. Am I wrong?" Senor and others thought about it. It seems that this is really the case. The young master has endured Marine a lot. Beckman, from an onlooker's point of view, seems to be the case. Hey. But I still underestimated Marine's shamelessness after all. Rosinante became a Marine. It's okay. I never wanted to control his life. Ever since I knew he was taken away by Sengoku for adoption, I understood. With his personality, he will definitely take the road of Marine in the future, but it doesn't matter, as long as he doesn't bother me. I would like to wish him smooth sailing in his official career." Doflamingo sighed softly. Beckman realized at this time, yes, Marine is so despicable, using Doflamingo's younger brother as an undercover agent to infiltrate Don Quixote family. Successfully, Marine obtained a lot of information about Don Quixote family, causing irreparable damage to Doflamingo. If it failed, it was nothing more than watching their brothers fight each other. From the beginning to the end of the co-authorship, Marine has nothing to lose, only Doflamingo is injured. Despicable. What a despicable conspiracy. I don't know who came up with it. Sengoku. 9 times out of 10, it's the Sengoku who is called the resourceful general, right? Marine Admiral, that's shameless. That is to say, Sengoku doesn't know Beckman's thoughts. Otherwise he will definitely shout innocent. I am a victim, I tried my best to stop it, but failed. But that despicable Marine sent Rosinante back to my Don Quixote family to be an undercover agent. That's really shameless. Doflamingo cursed angrily. Then young master, do we want to take revenge on Marine? Mahabasi asked immediately. Doflamingo gave this guy a blank look, and then said, at first we lived in peace, but now first suddenly attack Marine. Then Marine must be suspicious, that old fox Sengoku might notice. Rosinante was killed, we saw through it, and this would be detrimental to our plan, so we hold our ground for now, and when the time is right, first we'll give Marine and those bastards a hard time. Soon, Doflamingo ended the topic, and said, okay, as long as you have an idea about this matter, I will arrange the rest. Just do as I said. The most urgent thing is to go to Gaia Island. Speaking of which, Doflamingo glanced at Beckman and said, speaking of which, have you ever been to the Grand Line? I have been there, but not many times. Grand Line voyages are different from our 4 seas. They need to have record pointers. Beckman responded calmly. Recording pointers is not a problem. Doflamingo smiled and said, are you interested in challenging yourself to cross the Com Belt? I'm very interested, but your geography is definitely not good enough. Beckman complained. From our North Blue, if we cross the Com Belt, we will only reach the New World, but not the first half of the Grand Line. But in my impression, Gaia Island is in the first half, right? Doflamingo blushed, and then fooled. If my knowledge in this area is good enough, what do I need you, a navigator, to do? Since Com Belt can't do it, let's go from Mariejois. It's faster, by the way. Go to the capital of 7 waters to have a look. I wonder if my boat is finished? Based on the speed, there shouldn't be any, but if we come down from Sky Island, it's very likely that we'll finish it. After thinking for a while, Senor continued. Then go to Sky Island first, and then go to the capital of 7 waters after getting the Thunder Fruit, Doflamingo said with a nod. When the time comes, drive a new boat, go to East Blue, and see how Roger, that guy, opens the door to a new era. At this moment, Beckman asked, shouldn't Rosinante be shy about going to Sky Island? Why do you want to hide it? Just bring him, Doflamingo said calmly. In this way, Doflamingo sailed slowly towards the direction of the Holy Land Mariejois. But Rosinante, who is pretending to be crazy and foolish, doesn't know that his nightmare is coming soon. Because of his stubbornness and extremes, Marine will suffer a great loss. Naval Headquarters Marineford. In the living area, within the living area of the Marine Senior Generals, there is a courtyard, which is very quiet. Sakazuki, who is on vacation today, lives in this garden. Because of Sakazuki's fruit ability, or his personality is very hot, in short, he is not a person who is easy to get close to. As a Marine, especially a senior Marine General, he really needs a certain amount of self-control for his hot temper, otherwise he might make a big mistake at some point. So Sakazuki also intends to exercise his control in this aspect. The so-called self-cultivation is just like this. His residence in Marineford is the most secluded, which is completely opposite to his irritable personality. Not only that, Sakazuki also took the initiative to cultivate a hobby, which is gardening and potted plants. The large and small green plants in his courtyard are all planted and cultivated by him himself, and what is a little outrageous is that as long as you step into this courtyard, all the green plants that you can see are basically built in the right way. Founder, majestic atmosphere. Because Sakazuki doesn't like crooked things, and thinks that's against justice. In the street, there is a thin and tall figure wearing a marine justice cloak, wearing a yellow striped suit, with one hand in his pocket and one hand touching his chin. His eyes are floating left and right, and his whole body reveals a marine rear with a slippery and wretched temperament. Admiral, walking towards the yard of Sakazuki's house. Naval Headquarters has tens of thousands of people with strange shapes, but there is only one whose temperament can reach his level. That is Peluzalino, who is called Marine New Generation 3 Monsters, together with Sakazuki and Kuzan. The door to Sakazuki's house was open and unattended. Peluzalino walked in very naturally, as if he had been here many times. In fact, he did come many times. Sakazuki doesn't have many friends, but Peluzalino can barely be counted as one, because Peluzalino is never an enemy. Kuzan, one of the 3 monsters, hardly ever visits Sakazuki's house. I'm coming in, Sakazuki. Peluzalino greeted with a relaxed tone in a strange tone. Passing through the secluded courtyard, Peluzalino soon saw the main house. Sakazuki was not wearing Marine's clothes, as if because of the hot weather, he was naked from the upper body. Showing off his strong muscles in the sakura flower tattoo that occupies half of his body. The lower part of his body is a pair of black loose home pants. At this time, he is sitting cross-legged in front of a square table, holding gardening shears in his hand, with a face full of attention, and he is building a box of emerald pine trees on the table. Fang Zheng's straight appearance. Seeing Sakazuki's coquettish operation, Peluzalino couldn't help but rolled his eyes, and then complained, Sakazuki, the curved plate of emerald pine, is itself a characteristic of this plant. Generally speaking, pruning emerald pine is also based on its curved characteristics, making it appear softer. Your pruning method is too outrageous? Although Sakazuki heard Peluzalino's voice, the movement in his hands did not stop, and with a click, he cut off the branch with the tendency of bending. Then, he said very calmly, you also said, that's usually, isn't it? Seeing Sakazuki's unmoved appearance, Pelusalino didn't bother arguing with him, and sat down at the table, casually took out a teacup on the table, and poured tea for himself. This set of movements is smooth, and Sakazuki also looks like he has been used to it for a long time. Taking a sip of tea, Pelusalino breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, Sakazuki seemed to have finished his pruning and threw the branches on the table into the trash. It was also at this time that Sakazuki asked, "If I remember correctly, you should be on duty today, right? Why did you come to me? Did you miss work again?" "Don't slander people's innocence just out of thin air," Pelusalino said with a broken face. "I'm full attendance this month." Then, Pelusalino changed his tone and said, "Mariejois has a special envoy today." Speaking of Mariejois, Sakazuki seemed to be a little interested, and looked at Pelusalino with a questioning look in his eyes. Pelusalino didn't give a shit about it either, and continued, 2 years ago, during the World Summit, someone from the sky came to participate in the World Summit as a bystander with the special approval of Mariejois, remember it?" Sakazuki recalled for a while, then nodded and said, "It's the kind of guys who have a pair of small wings behind them, but they can't fly, right? They call themselves UK people." "We are more accustomed to calling them Sky Islanders," Pelusalino nodded. "The world government has been aware of the existence of Sky Island for a long time. For a long time, the world government has always wanted to project its influence on Sky Island, because the various resources of Sky Island are often known by the world. Number. Once the trade barriers and communication barriers between the two sides can be broken, the world government will undoubtedly be able to monopolize this resource exchange channel, and the benefits generated from it will be extremely huge. Therefore, for a long time, the government of the world has maintained a certain relationship with various Sky Islands with a good attitude. It's just a pity that so far, no Sky Island has chosen to join the franchise country system of the world government. And due to Sky Island's geographical advantage, it is difficult for the government of the world to use powerful force. After all, if you want to board the Sky Island, it is very dangerous and troublesome. You can choose to go straight up and down, but this method only occurs once a year, and there are not many people on it, and it is easy to wipe out the entire army. The second is the route connected to Sky Island that the government of the world has already opened up. Its name is Western Sky Top. Taking this route, you can also go to the sky. Although the danger is much reduced, the death rate remains the same, is very high. In addition to the problem of the route, people from all over the world will experience altitude sickness due to the thin air after they go to the Baihai and Baibaihi, so their physical strength, athletic ability, and combat experience will also decline. Finally, there are more troublesome supplies and garrisons. To sum up, if the world government wants to take down Sky Island by force, break through trade barriers, and realize the exchange of resources, the cost to be invested in the early stage is really too high, which is large enough to shake the foundation of the world government's current rule. Degree. So long ago, the world government ruled out the option of conquering Sky Island by force. Compared with this method of force, it is undoubtedly the cheapest option and the most convenient option to incorporate Sky Island into the system of the world government in a friendly way through negotiation and communication. In fact, this matter is not without success rate, because Sky Island also attaches great importance to the unique resources of the four seas. This is also the reason why some powerful Sky Islands will send some envoys to Mariejois for communication from time to time. 2 years ago, at the World Summit, people from Sky Island visited the rich heritage of the world government. Does this have anything to do with the envoy that Mariejois came up with? Sakazuki asked. Most Marines are not very happy to contact Mariejois, but the higher the status of the Marine, the more they cannot avoid such contact, because the Marine is a violent organization attached to the world government. Although it has a huge military force and an extremely powerful armed force, various seemingly invisible consumption resources such as logistics, military industry, and military expenses are all in the hands of the world's government. Therefore, although Marine is strong, it is tied. After taking the reins, facing the order of the world government, there is no room for resistance. Sakazuki is one of the rare Marine senior generals who is interested in Mariejois. The reason is very simple. Sakazuki understood one thing very early on, that is, if he wants to reach the top of Marine, he must maintain a good relationship with Mariejois' talent. A Marine who does not want to be a marshal is not a good Marine. If Sakazuki wants to realize the justice and goals in his heart, then he must regard becoming a Marine marshal as his ideal. In this way, he needs to maintain a certain relationship with Mariejois. As it turns out, Sakazuki was on the right track. 20 years later, Sengoku decided to step down from the position of Marshal Marine due to reasons such as the battle at the top. For this reason, Fierce conflicts broke out about the candidates for the next generation of marshal. Kuzan wrote that Sakazuki fought hard. As the marshal, Sengoku supported Kuzan. Among the Marines, Kuzan had more connections than Sakazuki. Mariejois did not take a fancy to Kuzan, who was indecisive and vacillating. They were more optimistic about Sakazuki, who had maintained a good relationship with them for many years, so they supported Sakazuki. As far as Mariejoi's support is concerned, it is enough for Sakazuki to fight against the Kuzan support faction, headed by Sengoku and Garp. It can be seen how much influence Mariejois has on Marine. In the end, Kuzan had to accept Sakazuki's invitation to fight. The two sides fought in Punk Hazard for 10 days and 10 nights. In the end, Sakazuki won the position of marshal. To be honest, if it weren't for Sakazuki's early layout and opening up a relationship with Mariejois, the marshal would definitely be Kuzan's. Sakazuki has no chance to fight Kuzan in the first area. Therefore, at this time, Sakazuki will be a little interested when he hears about Mariejois. Yes. Paluzolino nodded, and continued. This time, Mariejoi's special envoy is planning to travel from the top of the west to the Sky Island, and will have friendly exchanges with several Sky Islands on the way. But you also know that this kind of journey is destined to be full of dangers, so Mariejois needs our naval headquarters to send enough forces to protect the special envoy. Speaking of this, Polusari Nord paused and said, Admiral is impossible to dispatch. Mr. Zephyr is busy with his school now, so Sengoku Admiral is very busy with things. Mr. Garp's words are now bringing Kuzan all over the world. Looking for Roger's trail. As for me. Seriously, there is no overtime pay. I am not thankful for this kind of time-consuming and labor-intensive thing. Not very interested, but you, Sakazuki, I'll come. Sakazuki agreed immediately. Upon seeing this, Paluzolino said with a smile. I knew it, you would agree. Sengoku Admiral asked me to inform you, get ready to sail. The first half of the Grand Line, Gaia Island. If the island is seen from the sky 400 years ago, it looks like a standard skull. But later, a large piece of land, together with the people, animals, buildings, etc. living on it, was washed up into the sky by the huge ocean current. That is the legendary Sandia, and it is also the legend of the Land of Gold that has been handed down to this day. Today's Gaia Island has become a three-way zone, and evil parties from all over the island are entrenched, forming a small town called Magic Valley Town. There are actually places like this, evil parties' paradise, all over the world, and there are even quite a few. In the final analysis, it's not because it's really out of control, but because everyone knows that the evil party can't kill them all, and it's better to keep them away than to let them harm ordinary people in other places. It's better to leave them a stronghold and kill each other. And out of interests and other considerations, it is indeed necessary to have such a place as the entrance to the dark world. At this time, at the port of Gaia Island, Beckman squatted on the pier, reached out and touched the seawater, felt it for a while, then looked up at Doflamingo in a strange way and said, compared with ordinary seawater, there is nothing special change. I can't feel the trace of the existence of that special ocean current. Anyway, there is that kind of soaring ocean current, and the locals know it. Doflamingo said calmly. Not far away, there were two corpses that had been sucked dry of blood. It looked like they should be local gangsters who provoked Doflamingo. In fact, Magic Valley Town on Gaia Island is one of the 7 strongholds in the Dark World in the first half of the Grand Line. In the original story, it was originally a territory island owned by the Donquixote family. The people stationed here were Bellamy the hyena, who was not popular at the time and was not popular with Doflamingo. Looking at Gaia Island at this time, Doflamingo felt somewhat emotional. This is not the first time he has come to the Grand Line, but it is indeed the first time he has come here as a pirate. So, do we have to wait here for this annual soaring current before we can go up to Sky Island? Baker asked, turning his head and looking at Doflamingo. Doflamingo rolled his eyes and said, it's not like you didn't hear what Senor said just now. This year's soaring ocean current broke out 2 months ago. In other words, if you want to wait here, you have to wait at least 10 months' time is all it takes. I don't have this kind of leisure. Doflamingo did not choose to take the route of the West Sky Summit, because that route belongs to the route controlled by the world government and Marine, and it is not open to the outside world. In his capacity, it would be troublesome to go this way. And it's very time-consuming, so it's not necessary. He originally thought that if the surging current on Gaia Island could break out in the near future, he would take the surging current. But obviously, this time can't catch up. But it doesn't matter. Doflamingo himself can go to heaven, it's nothing more than a little trouble now. While Doflamingo was chatting with Beckman here, suddenly, Senor popped up on the sea in the distance, and followed. Senor shouted, Young master, it's coming. As soon as his voice fell, the originally calm sea surface suddenly became extremely turbulent. Before Senor had time to break free from the turbulent seawater, suddenly, the huge sea kings jumped out from under the sea surface, and Senor took the surroundings with him. A large amount of seawater was swallowed into the stomach. Sure enough, there are sea kings' lairs nearby, Doflamingo said with a bright eye. In the original story, when the ocean current broke out, many sea kings were drawn into it. After arriving on the island, Doflamingo also inquired about the situation a little. Indeed, sea kings are often seen fighting and hunting in the nearby waters. This proves that there are indeed sea kings' lairs in the surrounding sea area. At this moment, the huge sea king swallowed Senor in one gulp, but its anger didn't seem to be dispelled. If you look carefully, you will find that there is a dagger sticking out under this guy's eyelids. It was worn by Senor. Obviously, Senor dived deep underwater and stabbed it while it was sleeping. Doflamingo, who originally wanted to draw his sword, let go of his palm on his waist when he saw this situation. The main reason is that I was afraid of poor control, didn't pay attention, and accidentally cut off the Senor who was eaten by sea kings. Now that the wound is there, it's so easy. Doflamingo raised his hand very calmly, pointed at the huge sea kings, and followed. A scarlet light flashed in his eyes. The next second, Beckman at the side felt that Doflamingo's body seemed to surge. A strange and inexplicable force was activated. The furious sea kings seemed to have noticed Doflamingo standing on the port. It spewed out a large amount of seawater, and was about to roar and kill Doflamingo. Suddenly, the originally small wound under the eyelid was torn apart. Sea kings twitched all over from the severe pain, and then saw a large amount of blood gushing out from the torn wound like a fountain. The more blood there is, the more its wounds will be torn apart, which is a vicious circle. Also at this time, a bag suddenly bulged from Sea King's throat, and then exploded with a bang, and Senor covered in blood came out of it. And the appearance of this wound intensified the death speed of Sea Kings. With a huff, the blood flow in its throat also spurted out together. Before this guy struggled fiercely for a few minutes, his huge body seemed to be drained dry, floating on the sea surface. It was obviously a wounded corpse, but not a single drop of blood stained the sea area. Looking again, behind Doflamingo, like a waterfall of rain, a large amount of blood is floating behind him. The huge amount of blood in a whole Sea Kings was drained by him. Looking at the dead body of Sea Kings, Beckman said with emotion, "You might as well hack it to death, this way of death is too cruel." The vitality of Sea Kings is really strong. Doflamingo whispered softly, feeling the rich vitality in the blood. Then, he squeezed the palm of his hand, and the rain-like blood behind him began to twist and deform rapidly, and collapsed inward. The incomparably huge amount of blood, compressed by Doflamingo's ability, soon condensed into a blood cell the size of a fist, and then floated beside Doflamingo. What's next? Beckman looked at Doflamingo's operation, still a little puzzled. Doflamingo asked, "Have you heard of coding? I heard that there is a special process on the Saboti archipelago. If you want to dive to the Fishmen Island, you need to coat it there." Beckman said here, he was stunned and said, "You want to use blood to coat Doflamingo?" "That's right." Doflamingo pushed his own sunglasses, and followed his fingertips to lightly touch the air, pointing towards Doflamingo. In the next moment, the blood cells floating around Doflamingo rushed towards Doflamingo at an extremely fast speed. The moment it arrived around Doflamingo, the blood cells exploded and turned into a large amount of blood again, enveloping Doflamingo. Soon, a huge blood sphere appeared in the port. Looking carefully, Doflamingo was in the blood sphere at this time. The lower part of the ship seemed to be drifting in a sea of blood, covered by a large number of people. The blood floats up, while the upper half is covered by a round film formed by blood, as if it has been successfully coated. It is necessary to go through the White Sea, Bye-Bye Sea to reach the Sky Island. During this process, it needs to contact a lot of seawater, so Doflamingo must be completely sealed to form a coating state. As for the sea of blood supporting Doflamingo, it's because Doflamingo needs Doflamingo string to be in contact with the blood with a force that can withstand it. Under Beckman's surprised gaze, Doflamingo slowly raised his arm. After that, Doflamingo, which was covered in blood, left the sea surface and suspended in the air with the blood rising into the air. How? My coating technology. Doflamingo looked at Beckman beside him and asked with a smile. Awesome. Use your own ability to wrap the ship and take us to Sky Island. Seriously, your ability is too convenient, Beckman said with emotion. If you want to seek excitement, I can turn this blood into a sea current, and directly rush the boat up. Doflamingo said with a smile. As soon as the words fell, he moved his finger lightly, and a gap was opened in the blood film that was completely sealed, and then, the boat ladder made of blood fell precisely in front of Doflamingo. Doflamingo, Beckman, and Senor also naturally stepped onto the ladder made of blood, and soon entered Doflamingo. So, under the disbelieving gazes of many villains on Gaia Island, a large blood cell wrapped around the ship took off very strangely and quickly disappeared. The only evidence that can prove that the scene just now really existed is the dry body of the Sea King still floating on the sea at this time. In the cabin of Doflamingo, Rosinante leaned against the window, looking at the scarlet color outside, with some surprise in his eyes. Is this what Doflamingo can do? It's brutal enough. While Rosinante was thinking about how to get important information from the Donquixote family, there was a knock on his door. Then, without Rosinante to open the door was opened. I saw the stout Mahabas walking in with a dinner plate in his hand. Rosinante, it's time to eat. Mahabas grinned, revealing a strange smile. Rosinante's face twitched slightly. Along the way, he almost ate the nutritious meals prescribed by Dr. Nelson. And the so-called nutritious meal is actually a mixture of various vegetables, fruits and cooked meat, beaten into a muddy paste. Because he is a sick person, he must avoid spicy food, or something, so there is no seasoning in this meal. The main one is pure natural, pollution-free, and even the shredded pork is boiled in white water. After eating for nearly a month, now Rosinante can't help but want to vomit when he sees this meal. But, he couldn't refuse anything, so why is he a patient now? This meal is also from the love of the Donquixote family. If you want to gain their trust, you have to suffer. Therefore, under the concerned gaze of Mahabas, Rosinante suppressed the discomfort and nausea in his heart, and ate this colorful bowl of mush, which looked like devil's food, spoon by spoon. Very good. Mahabasi nodded happily, and then said, "You will be healthy soon, Rosinante, don't give up the treatment." Rosinante was just pretending to be amnesiac and dumb, not a fool, so he nodded slightly to indicate that he knew. Mahabasis went out with the plate, and Rosinante was slightly relieved, but within 2 minutes, Mahabasis came in again. He held a newspaper in his hand, and his fat body sat directly on the sofa opposite Rosinante. It's clear that Mahabas is here to keep an eye on Rosinante whenever he's free. It's called personal care, and Rosinante is very annoying, but there is nothing he can do about it. Look. Mahabas seemed to find something in the newspaper, turned it over, and signaled Rosinante to take a look. After Rosinante looked over, he found that the photo printed on it was his adoptive father, Sengoku, as if he was giving a speech somewhere. It's this bastard guy. His name is Sengoku, he's Marine Admiral. Our Donquixote family didn't provoke him, but he destroyed Cervantes. Rosinante, do you think this Marine is a beast? Wait later if we have a chance. How about going to revenge on him and killing him? Mahabasi deliberately said some harsh words to disgust Rosinante. Rosinante's face twitched, but seeing Mahabas's appearance, he knew that he could only integrate into the Donquixote family's will, now, so he could only suppress his aggrievedness and nodded in approval of Mahabas's scolding Sengoku as brute speech. Before coming here, I knew that I would suffer, but Rosinante never imagined that I would have to fight like this. At the same time, on the deck, a blood-red halo would flash under Doflamingo's feet from time to time. This is his ability in operation, wrapped in the blood of Doflamingo, passing through the first white layer at an extremely fast speed. Ocean. Speaking of which, I'm still a little puzzled, Beckman said suddenly. What puzzles? Doflamingo asked, taking a cigarette from Beckman's hand. Since you can take us to the sky with your ability, why do we have to rush to Gaia Island? Can't we just lift off from North Blue? Beckman asked, very puzzled. Doflamingo froze for a moment, then nodded and said, You are right, but the problem is that I don't know much about Sky Island, so I need Gaia Island as an anchor point. What do you mean? Beckman was still puzzled. Doflamingo explained. That is, I only know that there is a Sky Island above Gaia Island, and I don't know where the other Sky Islands are, so I want to launch from here. If I launch from North Blue, then after we go up, if we can't find Sky Island, we will get lost. I see. Beckman nodded in understanding, and then asked, What is the Sky Island above Gaia Island? Angel Island and Shandora, the land of gold. Doflamingo responded calmly. Directly above, it is naturally Shandora, no doubt, because Shandora was sent to the sky by the straight ocean current back then. And not too far from Mount Dora is Angel Island. No matter which of these two you find, you can quickly obtain information and consultation on Sky Island, and thus find Enel's hometown, Burka. This is the reason why Doflamingo insists on going to the sky from here. If it were North Blue, he would not know where he is and where he is going. Beckman nodded habitually at first, but in the next second, he reacted and said in surprise, "The land of gold." "Which land of gold?" "It's the land of gold that was passed down 400 years ago, the one in the story of the big talker Rolando." Doflamingo responded with a puff of smoke. "Ah. Beckman is a smart person after all," and clapped his hands. "I said before that Gaia Island is so familiar. 400 years ago, this place was called Shandora. In other words, the land of gold is real. It existed, but because of an accident 400 years ago, it flew into the sky." Beckman's eyes lit up when he said this, and he exclaimed, "The sea is soaring." Doflamingo raised his mouth and said, "Smart, that's right." After a short pause, Doflamingo said, "There is a gold treasure as big as an entire ancient city on it, worth trillions of Baileys. It should be no problem, but we didn't bring enough fleets up this time, so let's keep it for now. The next time we assemble a large fleet and come to Sky Island again, we can directly evacuate it. At that time, our Donquixote family will have a lot of cash. As long as we anchor the new base camp, we can develop extremely quickly." That's right. Doflamingo didn't intend to rule Dressrosa with violence and dark means. Because Dressrosa should be viewed as a basic market and a base camp. Therefore, it must be turned into a family base like an iron barrel, and there is no doubt that no matter how it is used, unless all the people above are killed, hidden dangers will be left behind. Not necessary. As the saying goes, money can turn ghosts around. Under the rule of the Liku royal family, Dressrosa really bid farewell to war and lived in peace. But the Liku royal family did not lead Dressrosa to a prosperous and powerful development path. On the contrary, Dressrosa has been in a poor situation for many years. As a royal family, the Liku family can't even spend 10 billion Baileys. And the people, there is not much oil and water. The reason is also very simple. Dressrosa's land area is small, so the resource output must not be much. The country cannot rely on the sale of resources to get rich, and it is unwilling to expand abroad and start wars. The best route is to develop technology and create wealth through technology. But obviously, Dressrosa failed to develop any powerful technology. From the powerful country ruled by the Donquixote family more than 800 years ago, with 20 kings, it has fallen to the current sad and pitiful state. Therefore, in Doflamingo's vision, he can use money to smash the hearts of the people of Dear Rosa. As for status, it's easy to say. Anyway, King Liku doesn't have any sons, only 2 daughters. I will marry one and become the legitimate heir to the throne, and then my old father-in-law found that my ability to govern the country is very outstanding, so he voluntarily stepped down. Throne, is it reasonable to pass on the honor of King of Dressrosa to me? What? What if he didn't discover my ability to govern the country? That person is old and died of natural illness, so it is reasonable for me to take over the throne, right? As for King Riku, is he willing to marry his daughter to Doflamingo? Then it should be no problem. After all, King Liku is still very enlightened. He can even marry the princess of Dressrosa to a criminal gladiator, so there is no reason why he can't do Doflamingo. And if it doesn't work, then Doflamingo has 100 ways to make it work. Just when Doflamingo was thinking about how to deal with Dressrosa in the future, the blood film outside the deck suddenly lit up, and brilliant sunlight reappeared outside the blood film. Doflamingo came back to his senses, and said softly, "We have successfully reached the White Sea. A little further up is the White Sea. After crossing the White Sea, we can see the Sky Island." According to the memories in my impression, the distance between Angel Island and Enel's hometown, Burka, should not be too far. After all, after Enel destroyed Burka, it didn't make sense for him to go to a place thousands of miles away to be named a god. Normally, he should choose a nearby Sky Island to enjoy. So as long as you arrive at Angel Island, it means that you are not far from Burka, Thunderfruit, not far. Doflamingo passed through the Bye-Bye Sea above the Bye-High Sea steadily, and successfully reached an altitude of 10,000 meters. The blood film that had protected Doflamingo along the way quickly disintegrated, and Doflamingo lifted his finger lightly. As if the thick blood had received some order, it gathered into a ball again, continuously condensed and compressed, and finally, the blood volume in a whole head of ordinary sea kings was completely compressed into a blood-red bead the size of a fist, floating behind Doflamingo. This is an ability that Doflamingo casually developed when North Blue was on the way to Gaia Island in the first half of the Grand Line when he was idle and bored. He didn't even give this ability a name. Let's call it concentrated blood cells. Considering that every time he fights, there may not necessarily be a large number of blood bags for him to sacrifice, so Doflamingo feels that it is necessary to consider the issue of blood storage. This storage method of compressing a large amount of blood into a ball and suspending it around him came into being. No special technical skills, just simple and crude compression and compression. Perhaps in other substances, Doflamingo can't do this, but only blood, he can. On the deck, Beckman leaned against the mast, his breathing was a little short, and his face was flushed. It wasn't just him, Senor and the others were the same. As for some boys who sailed, they were even more embarrassed, and some of them were weak, and they were already lying flat. Take a deep breath, dizziness is normal. Doflamingo turned around, jumped back, squatted down on the railing of the deck, looked at Beckman and the others with a smile on his face. Seeing Doflamingo watching a show, Beckman couldn't help rolling his eyes, but still followed Doflamingo's words, gradually slowing down his breathing rate and maintaining a deep breathing state. After about 3 or 2 minutes, Beckman took the lead to calm down the discomfort, and couldn't help but said, "The feeling of lack of oxygen. You obviously inhaled a lot of air, but your body can't absorb enough oxygen? It's normal at an altitude of 10,000 meters, Doflamingo said calmly. Beckman was silent for a moment, and then said, "Why don't you feel unwell? Is it because of your ability, or have you been here before?" "Ability is part of the reason. My vitality is very strong, and I have broken away from the normal human category. In fact, as long as there is blood in it, I don't even need to breathe," Doflamingo explained. "That's right, if he is soaked in the pool of blood, he can sleep in it without breathing at all. Oxygen is no longer necessary for his survival since he became a vampire." "What about the other side?" Beckman asked again. "The altitude of Mariejois is 5,400 meters. I lived there since I was a child," Doflamingo grinned. Beckman froze for a moment, then clapped his hands and said, "By the way, I almost forgot that you are the original celestial dragons." "That's right, during this voyage, Beckman, Doflamingo and others gradually got to know each other and became familiar with each other. Doflamingo itself has no intention of hiding his past, so when Beckman crossed Mariejois, he also knew that Doflamingo used to be celestial dragons. As for Beckman, he is from North Blue Okalon Island. His family is a whaler, but when he was 10 years old, his parents went out to sea to hunt whales, and they never came back. Maybe it was some kind of storm, or maybe it was some kind of pirate, who can say for sure? And in this sea, this kind of thing is too common." Becoming an orphan at the age of 10, Beckman did not give up the hope of life. First, he spent 2 years with the neighbor's fishermen. After he became a big guy, he joined the guard team of Ogolan Township and became a guard team. After earning some money, he learned some sailing knowledge. Originally, he thought that when he grew up, he would inherit his parents' profession and continue to be a whaler. But then once, a caravan was recruiting people in Okalon, and Beckman joined it by accident, and became a crew member on the ship. Later, he started hanging out on the sea, but he was quite talented in sailing. Over time, he became a well-known navigator in the caravan. After that, he jumped to the Volto armed transport group, and was poached by Doflamingo. It can be said that his past experience is placed in the sea. It is nothing special. So far, Beckman has not felt that he is different from ordinary people except that he is very smart. He also doesn't quite understand why Doflamingo is so optimistic about him. But he doesn't care about the answer. "Since you were optimistic about me, then I can't live up to your expectations." This is Beckman's idea. During the trip away from North Blue, Beckman is not doing nothing, he is also starting to practice the power of hockey. I don't know if it's because of his natural talent, or because he's smart enough to see through a little bit, but his practice is progressing smoothly anyway. The boat didn't move, and Doflamingo waited for his little brothers to recover. He stood on the fence and looked as far away as possible, and soon he saw a dense jungle. Such a dense jungle can still appear on the Bye-Bye Sea, there is no doubt. It is the ruins of Shandora, the other half of Gaia Island. Closing his eyes, he didn't know whether it was because the sky was abnormally empty or because of some other factors. In short, when Doflamingo released the observation hockey, he always felt that his observation hockey, which hadn't increased significantly for a long time, unexpectedly at this moment, just enhanced it. This made Doflamingo, who was planning to use observation hockey to search around, suddenly opened his eyes, with an incredible expression on his face. "What's going on? Am I breaking through the bottleneck?" Doflamingo asked in surprise. "What's wrong?" Beckman asked. "My sense of knowledge seems to be stronger," Doflamingo responded, ignoring Beckman and releasing his observation hockey again. Soon, Doflamingo confirmed that it was not an illusion. He just released the observation haki, and didn't even concentrate on training, but as if he was tempered by the high altitude, his observation haki did become stronger in the process. Could it be that the environment here is very suitable for the cultivation of knowledge and knowledge? Doflamingo analyzed with some surprise in his heart. It is not without evidence that Doflamingo would guess like this. After all, in the original story, Sky Island was the first place where observation haki appeared, but the people here. The color of seeing and hearing is called the heart outline, heart network. Why is also haki? Sky Island developed knowledge color, but did not come up with armed color. I'm afraid it's because the environment here is particularly suitable for the cultivation of knowledge and knowledge. Occasionally, there will be one or two geniuses who will naturally awaken this power, and then continue to summarize, and finally form the system of heart outline. Very likely. In fact, this is indeed the case. Not only the knowledge color, but also the armed color has a similar environment, that is under the deep sea. As long as the mermaids and murlocs who are interested in learning armament haki practice armament haki at the bottom of the sea, their progress will indeed be much faster than normal ordinary practice, and it will be easier for their own haki to enter the second stage. In the original story, Jinbei's armament haki is very strong, hard to carry. Big Mom Charlotte Linlin does not have too much pressure. Sky Island's knowledgeable color may be due to the openness of the high altitude, the thinness of oxygen, and the special natural environment, while the deep sea is due to the strong seabed pressure. Although the murlocs are adapted to this pressure, it does not mean that the pressure does not exist. If you have time, you should practice knowledge and knowledge on this Sky Island, and take a look at the cultivation method of heart outline. By the way, can it be integrated with each other or something? Doflamingo thought to himself. But not now, he doesn't have so much free time to do these things in Sky Island. No longer paying attention to the strength of the color of knowledge, Doflamingo quickly covered his observation haki, and began to search the Shandora jungle to see if the Shandia were there. And where is Angel Island? Are there any Sky Islanders around here who can lead the way? At the same time, at the same altitude of 10,000 meters, in the port of a certain Sky Island, Marine's fleet is mooring here. Sakazuki was looking helpless, looking at the Mariejois special envoy, lying on the deck with some disgust in his eyes, who was about to die. But he couldn't really watch him die, so Sakazuki sighed and said, "Take a deep breath, dizziness is normal. Let you absorb more oxygen with every breath." Seeing that the special envoy began to listen to his own opinion, he took a deep breath there, and Sakazuki also opened the map in his hand, and began to observe again. This trip is not to fix a certain Sky Island, but to tour several Sky Islands for friendly exchanges. And on this map, all the Sky Islands that need to be visited have been marked. One of them is the destination of Donquixote Doflamingo hyphenation point, Burka. At an altitude of 10,000 meters in a certain area of the White Sea, Doflamingo is sailing here. Beckman stood at the forefront of the deck, holding a Sky Island chart in his hand, raising his head from time to time, constantly measuring the situation of the route. Different from the Grand Line, the sea area of Sky Island can still use astrology to navigate. The simplest one is to judge the direction and route by comparing the time and the sun. Beckman's nautical skills are still very good, and the situation was confirmed after a few simple comparisons. According to the current speed, we will be able to reach this Burka in about 2 hours, Beckman said to Doflamingo behind him. On the deck behind him, a sun lounger was spread there, and Doflamingo was lying on it in very cool clothes, with big shorts on the lower body and a flowered shirt on the upper body, which was extremely casual. A large open parasol shrouds Doflamingo in shadow, and there is a little maid beside him who is stirring juice for Doflamingo. As soon as Beckman turned his head, he saw such a scene. He gritted his teeth and said, "You really deserve to die." Doflamingo froze for a moment, and said strangely, "Did I provoke you in any way?" "No, it's just that when I think about how you have spent your life before, it makes me distorted with envy and jealousy," Beckman said in a deep voice. Doflamingo laughed a few times, and then said, "I planed food in the trash can, and when I was hung on the city wall as a target, I didn't see you envious." Instead of entangled with these trivial matters with Beckman, Doflamingo asked, "There are still 2 hours, and I don't know what kind of Sky Island Burka is. Didn't that Gonfor from Angel Island say that? Burka is the most powerful Sky Island in this White Sea area." Baker thought for a while and said, "That's right, they had already been to Angel Island when they first landed on Bye Bye High. Compared with Doflamingo's impression, there is not much change there. If I have to say it, there is no Enel's brutal rule, people in that place live more comfortably. However, the 400-year-long war between the Sky Island people and the Sandia people is still going on. The Sky Island is similar to the Blue Ocean below. They are autonomous islands, and each island has its own ruling class. Generally speaking, the ruler of Sky Island is called God. If we talk about the biggest point of contradiction between the world government and Sky Island, it is probably the title issue. If Sky Island joins the system of the world government, then their rulers will definitely not be able to use the name of God, but people have called it like this for generations. You say you are not allowed to use it. No need? In various places, it is troublesome to deal with matters related to traditions and customs. Perhaps, this is the reason why Sky Island has not been included in the world government system even after 20 years have passed. The volume of Sky Island is generally smaller than that of Blue Sea Island. For example, on Angel Island, there are not many people on the island, and it is fully counted, that is, about 20,000 to 30,000 residents. In this regard, Angel Island can be regarded as a relatively powerful Sky Island, and according to Gonfur, Burka is the strongest Sky Island among the 6 surrounding Sky Islands, with a population of nearly 100,000 and thousands of guard soldiers. It sounds good, but Doflamingo and others completely ignored it. If the random killings were really open, Doflamingo felt that he could turn all the 100,000 people on the island into nourishment within 10 minutes. But it's not necessary. He didn't come to Sky Island to kill people. As long as he can find the thunder fruit smoothly, he doesn't intend to have any conflict with Burka at all. Just like this leisurely wandering, about 2 hours later, a Sky Island about 3 times bigger than Angel Island appeared on the sea level of UUC. Doflamingo stood up, took out a binoculars, and observed the situation on the opposite side. It wasn't just Doflamingo that spotted Burka. On Burka, it seems that lookouts have been arranged long ago. On the tall lighthouse, a person from Sky Island also discovered Doflamingo at the first time. He quickly knocked a shell on the table, and said directly, "Lighthouse, lighthouse, there is a report, the boat of the Blue Sea people is coming." Shell quickly responded, "Are you sure you are from land high?" "Very sure. It can be seen that some of them are on the deck, and all of them have no wings," the lookout responded. "Their speed is really fast. It was 2 days earlier than we originally estimated." "Okay, let's get ready. I'll notify Lord God first," Shell responded. After a while, Beckman, who was observing Burka after taking over the telescope from Doflamingo, was a little confused. He asked in surprise, "Isn't this right? Are all the people in Burka's Sky Island so enthusiastic?" "Why so enthusiastic?" Doflamingo had leaned back on the sun chair at this time, and was a little puzzled when he heard Beckman's words. "See for yourself." Beckman quickly handed the telescope to Doflamingo. Doflamingo took the binoculars suspiciously, stood up reluctantly, and looked towards Burka. "Good guy. Really good guy." On the pier that was empty just now, a large group of Sky Island people have gathered at this time. In the front row is a group of Sky Island children, wearing uniform sky-white vests, holding flowers in each hand, waiting there. There was also a banner at the back, which said, "Welcome, welcome, warmly welcome." There are still many people who are waving enthusiastically to Doflamingo. It can be vaguely seen that the guards are the same. It should be the members of the Divine Guard of Sky Island, dredging the road at the port and laying a red carpet on the ground, as if waiting for his Doflamingo to come. Doflamingo people are stupid. What's going on? Are the people of Sky Island in Burka so hospitable? What a simple, kind-hearted group of people this is. Enel, **King bastard, you actually destroyed such an island. Putting down the binoculars, Doflamingo and Beckman looked at each other, both a little confused and puzzled. Senor was also curious, so he took the binoculars to look at it, and was also stunned after reading it. "Young master, our Donquixote family has never enjoyed this kind of treatment," Senor said with emotion. "That's right, in North Blue, you won't get this kind of treatment wherever you go. The Donquixote family is not a good thing." In order to repay this love, Doflamingo also waved his hand and said, "Quick, everyone is there. Change me into formal clothes, be more serious later, and be more polite to me." After a while, all the people on Doflamingo, including Doflamingo, who was flamboyant just now, became masters of formal attire. They all wore black suits, with serious expressions, and looked very imposing. Then, Doflamingo also slowly sailed into the port. When the ladder was lowered, Doflamingo took the lead and walked in the forefront, followed by Beckman and Senor. Not to mention, the 3 of them were all wearing black suits, and they all looked good enough to fight. When they came down together, the people of Sky Island in Burka cheered. The 3 of Doflamingo got off the boat, and soon the captain of the Divine Guard came forward and saluted. "3 distinguished guests from the Blue Sea, please follow me. God has been waiting for a long time." Although Doflamingo was still a little puzzled, he didn't hesitate and said with a smile, "Then I will trouble you to lead the way." Soon, amidst the cheers of the crowd at the pier and the flowers of the children, Doflamingo and his party left here. Walking on the road, Doflamingo said, "By the way, you Burkas are really enthusiastic. I saw you waiting on the pier from a long distance." The captain of the Divine Guard also smiled when he heard the words, "Ha ha ha, the god of the previous Sky Island greeted me and said that you will come towards us, so we also made preparations in advance, but you were also very happy. Hurry up, I thought you would arrive 2 days late." Huh. Doflamingo was stunned for a moment, and then said with emotion, "Gonfal is such a good man." The guards were also stunned for a moment. Gonfal. If I remember correctly, the god of Link Sky Island is called Whales, right? That's right. The Burka people regarded Doflamingo and his group as the guests of that Mariejois from Lan Hai. However, the captain of the Divine Guard didn't think much about it, he just thought that the guest had misremembered his name. Actually, in the sea area of Sky Island, the possibility of encountering blue sea people like Doflamingo and the others is very small, especially when the soaring current has already erupted. The route of the West Sky Summit is basically under the control of the world government and marine, and it is difficult for other forces to get involved. So when I saw Doflamingo and the others from the Blue Sea, it was very normal to admit that I was wrong in line with the previous information. Both parties did not delve too deeply into this matter, and chatted about local customs and customs along the way. The three of Doflamingo were quickly brought to the shrine by the captain of the Divine Guard. It is said to be a shrine, but it is actually a pyramid-shaped building. This is the ruling center of Burka. As the most powerful sky island among the surrounding sky islands, Burka has a long history, and the shrine is also very luxuriously built. A large amount of gold has decorated this shrine, and there are groups of maids writing poets along the way. Finally, in the depths of this shrine, Doflamingo saw the god of Burka, an old man with a gray beard and a bald head. "Welcome, distinguished guest of Blue Ocean." The bald god named Kizaru took over the priesthood in his 20s, and Burka has been a god for more than 40 years. Under his leadership, Burka has developed very well and has a feeling of prosperity. After exchanging pleasantries for a while, the two sides sat down soon. The captain of the Divine Guard also stood behind Kizaru. "Guests, I somewhat know the purpose of your visit this time." After Kizaru and the others sat down, they suddenly said. Doflamingo froze for a moment, then frowned slightly and said, "Your Excellency Kizaru, could it be that your mind's technique is already able to spy on people's hearts or foresee the future?" "I just sat down," you pigmouth said. "What am I doing here?" "You observation hockey, you practiced well too." Kizaru was stupefied when he heard Doflamingo's words. He quickly came back to his senses, shook his head and said, "I haven't practiced the heart outline technique." "Doflamingo? So what are you bragging about? What? Can you see the future?" "However, the gods of Sky Island have contacted us before, and probably talked about the purpose of your visit." Kizaru smiled, and then said, "The special envoy, you are here on behalf of the Holy Land of the Blue Sea, Mariejois. To further deepen the relationship between our Sky Island and Blue Ocean, we hope to get some trading rights from us, right?" Doflamingo fell silent when he heard this. "Wait, Holy Land Mariejois?" All of a sudden, Doflamingo understood everything. "Good guy, you Burkas have misidentified the wrong person. I just said, why are you so enthusiastic and generous, and you still look godlike? So that's what happened." Seeing Doflamingo's silence, Kizaru thought he had taken the initiative in the conversation, and a smug gleam flashed in his eyes. After a moment of silence, Doflamingo met Beckman and Senor's eyes, and then said, "Cough. Then I don't know what you think, Mr. Kizaru? Speaking of which, I haven't asked the distinguished guest what to call you." Kizaru asked. "I also forgot to ask this question when I was in contact with other Sky Islands." Doflamingo immediately said generously, "I am the descendant of 20 kings, young master of the Donquixote family, Don Quixote Doflamingo." Kizaru froze for a moment, and then said in surprise, "I didn't expect your blood to be so noble, Your Highness Don Quixote Doflamingo. As I said before, Sky Island has exchanges with the world government, and sent people to participate in the World Summit. Naturally, I have a certain understanding of the situation on Mariejois. Among other things, they must know the name, Don Quixote. This is one of the 19 celestial dragons families in the Holy Land Mariejois, and their identity and bloodline are very noble. What's more, this is the young master of the Don Quixote family. What does that mean? The future patriarch. Of course, this is all a misunderstanding. Doflamingo means I am from the North Blue Donquixote family. Mariejois or not Mariejois, it has nothing to do with me. Doflamingo also gradually assumed his own role, and said, this time I am here, apart from some official business of Mariejois, I also have some personal matters I want to solve. One time. As soon as Kizaru heard this, he knew the meaning. Donquixote family, that is indeed very powerful, I have to build a good relationship with him. Maybe I can get more than the rest of Sky Island. What about the interests? Your Highness, what is your private matter? Kizaru asked. Cough. I don't know if Lord Kizaru has heard of devil fruit, Doflamingo asked. Devil fruit. Kizaru raised his eyebrows and said, the thing cursed by the sky and the sea. Once eaten, one day, it will fall into the white sea devil fruit. Doflamingo didn't care much about these descriptions. Different places may have different deviations, but this is generally the case, so he nodded immediately. Yes, it is such a devil fruit. I came to Burka this time. Actually, the main reason is to find this devil fruit. If Your Excellency Kizaru can help me find this fruit, I will sign a trade contract with you in the name of the young master of the Donquixote family. I can afford it. When Kizaru heard this, his heart was relieved. As for Doflamingo's all-inclusive attitude, is it suspicious? No, absolutely not suspicious. On the contrary, according to the memories of the special envoy who visited Mariejois that year, the celestial dragons on Mariejois should have been so arrogant, and majestic. They have extremely high power, and they have extremely huge forces under their command. They are the supreme rulers of Blue Sea Island. A mere Burka, from their point of view, is probably nothing special. If it can be satisfied, it will definitely be satisfied. At this moment, Kizaru has already started to imagine what terms he will write in the trade contract. Doflamingo doesn't care about this. You can write whatever you want. Anyway, I will definitely sign my name Don Quixote Doflamingo. I won't lie to you at all. As for whether it can be used in Mariejois, I don't know. If you can hold your breath, Doflamingo will definitely be usable when I become the king of the world. If you think about it this way, it's not considered a scam. After calming down his excited mood, Kizaru asked again. I wonder what kind of devil fruit you are looking for, Your Highness. Doflamingo snapped his fingers. Senor. Senor immediately took out a blueprint from his pocket, and when he opened it, it was an enlarged version of the thunder fruit picture. There is no name marked, and no ability effect marked, it is just a picture. The devil fruit I'm looking for looks like this. I'm sure that the devil fruit is in Burka. Doflamingo pointed to the picture in Senor's hand. Kizaru immediately took out a pair of reading glasses from his pocket, put one on the bridge of his nose, and leaned forward to look at it. After a while, he slapped his thigh violently and said, Nares. The guard captain who was originally standing behind Kizaru quickly said, I am here, my lord. Look. Is this the devil fruit in the collection room? Why does it look similar to me? Kizaru pointed to the drawing and asked. Nares stepped forward to observe it, then nodded and said, that's right, that's the one. I saw it twice when I went to collect the things. When Doflamingo and Beckman heard this, their hearts were filled with excitement. Thunderfruit is indeed in Burka. Cough. Kizaru coughed slightly, and said, Your Highness, if you don't mind, why don't you visit our Burka collection with me? Doflamingo immediately stood up and said, then respect is worse than obedience. After finishing speaking, Doflamingo added, Your Majesty Kizaru, you can ask someone to draw up a trade treaty. Feel free to mention the conditions. After I get the devil fruit, I can sign right away. Kizaru himself felt that it was a bit too impatient to mention this contract now, but he did not expect that the young master is a wonderful person who emphasizes credibility. Good. He waved his hand and signaled his captain to settle the matter, and then took the three of Doflamingo towards the collection room with hasty steps that didn't match his age. After passing through a pavilion and entering the little garden, Doflamingo saw a group of 16 and 17-year-old teenagers being trained by the instructor. Doflamingo himself just glanced at it and didn't pay too much attention to it, but in that glance, he observed a young man with huge earlobes, who looked about 17 or 18 years old, and when he looked again, this sinister face, is that the kid Enel? Seeing that Doflamingo seemed to be very curious about these teenagers, Kizaru took the initiative to introduce. These are orphans adopted and raised by the Divine Guard since childhood. In the future, they will become members of the Divine Guard to protect Burka's safety. Doflamingo nodded lightly. The members of the Divine Guard, judging from what Nares said just now, members of the Divine Guard, especially the captain, still have a certain chance of being able to get in touch with Thunderfruit. Thinking about it this way, maybe Enel has been here for more than 10 years, and became the next captain, and then came into contact with Thunderfruit, and finally became Thor, and then destroyed Burka, and then ran to Angel Island to show his power as a blessing. He finally met Wong Luffy, who hammered him away to the moon. From the perspective of the law of causality, taking the Thunderfruit away from Burka can be regarded as saving Burka's future. After all, Enel, without the Thunderfruit, it is impossible to cause any big waves. Burka is still the same Burka. At most, he can seek power and usurp the throne, from the guard of the gods to become a god, but it is impossible to destroy Burka. Do good every day, me. Doflamingo sighed. There was no delay, and he quickly passed through the garden, but Doflamingo was also thinking, is Enel worth cultivating? Soon, he had the answer. Perhaps, Enel is talented. After all, with Thunderfruit, he can develop knowledge to cover the entire island, even from the Land of Gold to Angel Island. Really amazing. That is to say, he suffers from a small vision. If he grows up in New World, with Thunderfruit's ability, he will be a well-known character after all. But there is a problem, that is, Enel looks like a wolf, combined with the situation in his original story. This kid is rebellious. Thinking of this, Doflamingo smiled to himself. It's not necessary. In fact, regardless of Thunderfruit, no one can be sure about Enel. There is no need to train him. Let him be a little bitch in Sky Island. The door of the collection room was opened, and then Kizaru walked into it with Doflamingo and others. There are not many collections. After all, it is Sky Island, and the resource circulation rate is not high. Even many collections, in Doflamingo's view, are ordinary things on the sea. Perhaps because the location has become Sky Island, those ordinary things suddenly become valuable. Just like, it is normal for the functional shells, that can be seen everywhere on Sky Island to be placed in the world and collected by wealthy merchants and nobles. It is precisely because of the scarcity of resources that are not connected to each other that the government of the world feels that once the trade barriers can be broken through, the profits will be extremely huge. After passing some showcases, Doflamingo stopped in front of a showcase. In this showcase is a model of a ship. Different from sailing warships that are common in the sea at present, this model ship uses row oars, that is, at the height of the waterline of the hull, on the left and right sides, 2 rows of wooden oars like millipedes protrude, driven by manpower, do rowing. Many years ago, this kind of ship was popular, and it broke out very quickly in a short distance. It can use the power of rowing oars to quickly approach the enemy ship, and then a boarding battle will occur. However, it is obvious that such a ship requires a large number of crew members. Once the supplies cannot keep up, it is easy to cause a crisis, so it is not suitable for long-distance voyages, and it needs the emperor's slaves. Therefore, when the world government abolished slavery from the legal level, the cost of this kind of rowing boat became extremely high. After that, the development of artillery also entered a new stage, which led to great changes and inclinations in the tactics of naval warfare, and quickly lost the combat advantage. Eventually, such ships, largely out of sight, were phased out. Of course, this does not mean that paddling is meaningless. In fact, the new development of paddling is sail paddling boat, that is, the manpower of paddling is combined with the wind force of sail, and the adaptability is stronger. Explosive power has also been significantly improved. Compared with common foreign sailing ships, this is its advantage. The disadvantage is still the same disadvantage, that is, only local tyrants can afford this kind of ship, because the number of sailors required for rowing ships is larger, so the ships generally need to be larger, and the carrying capacity must be very powerful, otherwise they will not be able to hold enough supplies. Still can't support long voyage. Secondly, it is the employment fee of the crew. Now it is difficult for you to find so many slaves to row the boat for you, so you have to pay for it. Therefore, on the sea, as long as you see a performance boat with a combination of rowing oars and sails, you don't need to ask. It must be the car of a wealthy family, and the little ones can't afford it. This kind of ship can shoot artillery with you from a distance, fight bayonet with you when it is close, has sails on a long voyage, and can accelerate with paddles when it is short voyage. It is not difficult to cross the calm belt. The model ship in front of Doflamingo is not a combination of sails and paddles. On the surface, it looks like a simple paddle boat, but if you look closely, you will find that its hull is huge. Do not understand something. What's the matter? Beckman leaned over curiously and asked. Doflamingo said softly, this ship is interesting. He glanced down at the label, and the introduction on it was, Ark Proverb Model. Ark Proverbs, isn't that the King Enel's flying boat? At the same time, Kizaru also came over. Seeing that Doflamingo seemed to be very interested in this thing, he immediately introduced. This is the model of the Ark Proverbs. It was about 600 years ago. The last ship, the Ark Proverbs, are completely decayed and can no longer be used or repaired. Since then, we Sky Islanders have lost the Ark Proverbs. For now. Only the design drawings and some models remained. Speaking of this, Kizaru seemed to realize that Doflamingo and the others were from the Blue Sea and did not know the situation of Ark Proverbs, so he continued. Some sayings that have been handed down from ancient times to the present have said that we Sky Island people came from the moon, and the Ark Proverbs is actually the ship used by the moon immigrants, so the Proverbs is a spaceship that can fly in the air. Beckman also became interested when he heard the words, and asked curiously, a ship that can fly into the air? That's amazing. Why are there still design drawings and even detailed models, but now there are no new arcs? Gone? Cough. Because we lack a scarce fuel resource on the moon. According to ancient records, the operation of the Ark Proverbs requires extremely high energy consumption. There is not enough energy to support the actions of the Ark Proverbs. In fact, there is a high-efficiency energy source, which is especially suitable for the Ark, but here, we don't have that kind of energy source. Over time, the proverb can't fly. If it can't fly, it is actually a paddle boat. Looking at it this way, it is really unwise for us to spend a lot of money to manufacture it, so although the design drawings and so on are all there, we Sky Island people have not built this ship for hundreds of years. Kaido explained. A flash of understanding flashed in Doflamingo's eyes, so it turned out to be the case. No wonder only Enel was the one behind to get this ship out. After all, that guy is a thunderfruit-capable user, and the energy of lightning is inexhaustible. He can fully support the energy consumption of the Ark Proverb flight. Thinking of this, Doflamingo looked at Beckman beside him. This guy will soon become a thunderfruit-capable person. When the time comes to create this proverb, won't he be able to go to heaven directly? In addition, Sky Island's technological level has been dating since the moon, so that the current level is simply inferior, not as good as the Blue Ocean. We can't research that kind of efficient energy drive here, but it's not necessarily in the Blue Ocean. Maybe it's Quinn, Guy, or Judge. What can be done? After all, Frankie can transform coke into high-efficiency energy for explosive use. This difficulty should not be particularly outrageous, right? Thinking of this, Doflamingo asked, Your Majesty Kizaru, I am very interested in this Ark Proverbs. I wonder if you can give me the blueprint and model of this ship? It is not a particularly important thing in itself, and it has been eaten here for hundreds of years, so Kizaru immediately hesitated without any hesitation, and said directly, No problem. Come with me, I'll go get it out. After a while, Senor was already holding the model of Ark Proverbs in his arms, and he still had a full set of design drawings of Ark in his clothes. After finishing this matter, soon, everyone came to a showcase. In this showcase, there was a devil fruit. Judging from the appearance, there was no doubt that it was the same as the one recorded in the Devil Fruit illustrated book. The Thunder Fruit, which has disappeared in the sea for nearly 100 years, is exactly the same. Doflamingo reckoned that the reason why the Thunder Fruit disappeared in the sea for so long was probably because it fell into the hands of the people of Sky Island in Burka, and it was collected and put here to collect ashes. If it hadn't been for Enel's rebellious boy who betrayed Burka, killed a lot in Burka, and ate Thunder Fruit, it is estimated that this fruit can sleep here for a longer period of time. Looking at this Thunder Fruit, Doflamingo was filled with emotion in his heart. The so-called invincible ability is so close in front of his eyes, but it is a pity that he is already a capable person. But after thinking about it again, my ability is also very strong, it is no worse than Thunder Fruit. Judging from the impression, although Thunder Fruit is strong, the final answer of the version is Zone's Phantom Beast. Thinking of this, Doflamingo let go of the obsession in his heart and asked Baker, How is it? Are you excited? Beckman stared at the Thunder Fruit, and said after a long time, You know what? When I saw this fruit, I already started to fantasize about the situation where I'm all-powerful in the sea. Then your fantasy will soon come true. Doflamingo smiled, then looked at Kizaru and said, Your Excellency Kizaru, please give us this devil fruit. Kizaru hesitated for a moment. After all, the contract has not been signed yet. But things have come to this point, and it is not too late, so Kizaru immediately opened the cabinet with the key, and took out the Thunder Fruit inside, handed it to Doflamingo and said, Your Highness Doflamingo, regarding the trade contract. Don't worry, Don Quixote Doflamingo, always talk about credibility, Doflamingo said without hesitation. Kizaru took a deep breath and said, Then you guys can hang around here to see if there's anything else you're interested in. I'll go and urge Nares. He is not at ease if he does not sign the agreement after all. Doflamingo and the others didn't stop anything. After Kizaru left, Doflamingo played with the Thunder Fruit twice, then threw it to Beckman and said, "It's finished. This place is not suitable for eating. I will find an open place later. Hurry up, eat it, so as not to have long nights and dreams." Beckman took the thunder fruit, smiled and said, "Before I came here, I didn't expect to get the thunder fruit so smoothly. Furofuroferfer. Yes, but why are we Mariejois envoys now? I'm Donquixote Doflamingo, descendant of 20 kings, no lie, right?" Doflamingo said with a big laugh.